Chapter 66. Game finished. Mother, before we start to walk away, we should do like Luan, take parts of the spider's body and use it as a weapon, Katharina said, looking in the direction of the giant spider. I think the legs of this spider can be used as a weapon, at least it is better than being empty-handed. By the way, the extinguisher is gone, you can't use it anymore. Yes, I also intend to take the gas out of the car and put it in a canister in the trunk. Christina said she started to manage to generate a little fire. Even if it's a little, we can use gasoline to trap some of these mutant beasts. Mara spoke her idea aloud. Great. Let's not waste any time, then. Katharina was more confident when she heard what her mother said. Let me take off the spider's legs since I have more strength. Meanwhile, mother and big sister can get the gas out of the car, Christina suggested. Okay. Let's do it this way. As it was not very risky, it was necessary to trust each other. Moreover, it was a fact that Christina was the strongest and had the best chance of pulling the spider's legs. Mara added, there are gloves here. Do not risk touching directly the purple goo, as it could be poison. Yes, I understand. Christina took the pair of gloves, which got a little big in her hand, but it was still better than running out. Asterisk. Finally, Luan murmured. He was without his room and had just finished all the game system settings. The game was at least 20 years old at the current time, however, Luan reduced the graphics to be accessible for the current time. Even so, the way the characters moved was very real. Luan walked with the character created in his image around the city of Florianopolis that he replicated. Yes, he had replicated the entirety of planet Earth, mapping all the corners of the world. Using the knowledge he had of his past life, he, who had traveled all over the world, it was easy for him to do that. Although the game was bulky because of that, it did something like an elimination system. Whenever a person changed cities, the old saved configuration of that city would be deleted and replaced by the next one, not taking up as much space on the hard drive. Unfortunately, the current internet was not fast enough to download the new maps every time you change cities, but it was still better than making the game too memory intensive. In addition, his main focus was not to change the map but to learn the technique of body foundation. Of course, it also had the function of keeping the maps already downloaded. The first option was more for users of the game who were unable to have a very large hard drive and could not let it take up much space in the HD. For the character that Luan created, he first had to train one technique move repeatedly. He accelerated time in the game, and after 5 days of training and meditation, the game's character reached level 1. The character started out as an ordinary citizen, but after reaching level 1, the character who used to live a normal life started to see monsters roaming the city and attacking without being noticed. Luan used his character to attack a level 1 monster that was attacking a man in the city, which looked like the man was crazy since he was struggling alone and nobody else saw the monster. After defeating the monster, Luan dropped a crystal. That crystal was used to exchange for the second movement of the body technique. It was necessary to have 100 crystals to be able to exchange for the second part. Another thing that he intended to do as an expansion of the game was to make simulations of dimensional cracks. However, this was not the right time for this, and it would also take more time. For now, it was enough to put the game online. As for hosts, Dimas Corporation had a host branch. There was no reason for him to worry about that. The design he had already done was not difficult. He could draw everything he could imagine by computer. And it was easy for him to configure and place all of the types of hair, bodies, body structure, etc. in character creation. After making a call, he already created the host for the game too, and the game was already online, along with the website. However, he still wouldn't announce it. As he planned, he would speak to his grandfather first. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Luan had already finished all his appointments. Now, he only had a business dinner at 8:30 p.m. However, suddenly, he received a warning from the system created by his cell phone. He looked at the warning which said, Mara Dimas, Christina Dimas, and Katharina Dimas were unavailable for more than 1 hour on their cell phones. And in the search engine, they cannot be found, and the last time you saw them was in Mara Dimas's car, almost at the entrance to the highway. In addition, there was a video that was very blurred, but Luan could see at the exact moment that the car disappeared. Because it was made from a not-so-good surveillance camera, the dimensional crack could not be seen properly, but Luan was sure that his mother and sisters were caught by one. Luan hurriedly left his office, and said when looking at Ingrid, "Follow me, something happened." Yes. Ingrid asked no questions and just followed Luan closely. She knew that for Luan to be acting like this, something very serious had happened. Asterisk. Mom, attack now. Christina kicked from the bottom up, hitting the scorpion and making it get off the ground. Yes. Mara held a spear made of the giant spider's leg, and seeing the giant scorpion in the air, she pierced it with the spear. Bang. Asterisk. Katharina also held a spear made from the giant spider's leg. She aimed at the scorpion's head and attacked. Bang. Asterisk. At the tips of the spears, she had placed some spider venom. Even if it took time to work, after being hit so many times with poison both on the head and stomach, the giant scorpion succumbed. This was an easy one. Good teamwork. Katharina smiled and made a "put it here" for her mother and little sister, while raising a hand toward each of them. Mara and Christina were cooperative and hit Katharina on the hand with a "palm" sound. Katharina, who was looking at the giant scorpion, said, Now what to do with this scorpion? Should we pull out his claw and use it as a weapon? After all, it must be stronger than the legs of the giant spider. Not only that, there are these other claws that look like pliers. They can also be used as a weapon, and remember how difficult it was to hurt this scorpion's back. So, I think we should take it out to use it as a shield, Christina said. She still remembered how good the defense of this scorpion's back was. It would be a good idea in her opinion to use it to create a shield. That's not bad. Let's do it. Mara agreed. She knew that if they wanted to survive, it was necessary to strengthen themselves. Since we agreed on this, we will first remove the claws, because with that, we can use them to cut the rest since they look sharp as razors, Katharina thought and said. Yes, that's a good idea. Mara nodded. With that in mind, Mara, Katharina, and Christina began to work carefully so as not to be poisoned by accident. C67 full. Backquote. First, very carefully, they removed the claws, breaking the underside of the claw, used it as a knife, and began to cut the scorpion's top shell. A total of 5 very hard black shells were removed, and it was a little gooey with green blood. The scorpion's tail was very flexible, which was not very ideal to use. We can cut off a piece of rope and tie the scorpion's tail to one of the spears made from the giant spider's claw, Mara said. Since the rope they were using was large, she saw no problem. Okay. Katharina and Christina also thought it was a good idea. After cutting the tail and tying it to one of the spears, it got thicker and heavier, but it was clearly more powerful than before, especially the tip of the tail that was quite pointed. Now each of them had a shield made of scorpion shells which was held by a piece of rope that went through the outside in 2 holes, thus creating a loop for them to hold. It was not ideal, but it was the best they could do now. Let's continue. With all this done, they kept the spears and shields in the trunk of the car. But as the spears were large, it had to be left open, but this also made it easier to take things out and fight using them. They continued to pull the car across the sand, and after they each had a turn pulling they got in the car to meditate and recover. Blang. Asterisk. I just became 7 times stronger. Katharina murmured after meditating for almost half an hour. I was 6 times stronger. This must be because while we fought, we used the movements taught by Luan. And when we meditate now, the whole process of struggle has become strength. That was faster than training normally, Mara said, pleasantly surprised. Christina, who was still immersed in meditation, seemed to be close to a new discovery. Blang. Asterisk. 10 times stronger, Christina murmured, full of happiness. She also noticed that her sensitivity to flame had increased. Purple flames appeared suddenly in the palm of her hand and were extinguished the moment she closed her little hand in a fist. With this, our chance of survival increases. Katharina was happy to see that her little sister had also become stronger. In fact, my hunger and thirst have passed, Mara commented in amazement. This cultivation business is really great. Just meditating, I no longer feel hungry and thirsty. Master, Big Brother told me that if we get too strong, we can even go years without eating and drinking, Christina said. She remembered a conversation she had had with Luan. Truly mystical. Katharina sighed in admiration. Okay, I'm going to pull the car first. Christina felt very energetic after the increase in strength. Okay, but don't try too hard, Mara said with concern. Yes, Mom. Christina smiled and got out of the car. She then started to pull the car. Almost 10 minutes later, she switched places with Katharina, who pulled the car for almost 10 minutes, and Mara was the same. This continued until they found another giant scorpion in the desert. Get ready. Let's deal with this scorpion, Mara, who was pulling the car, said. She saw that the giant scorpion was running at a fast speed towards her, and she dared not be slow. Christiana and Katharina also went to pick up the spear and shield. Christina acted first, defending against the tail of the giant scorpion with the shield, and in addition to defending, she propelled the shield forward, causing the giant scorpion to become unbalanced. With her right hand, she held the heaviest spear, which used the tail of the previous scorpion, and attacked, sticking its claw directly forward. The scorpion used the left claw and attached the spear and tried to break the spear by squeezing it. However, the giant scorpion didn't even have time, as Mara appeared on the left side and Katharina on the right side, attacking at the same time with the same strength with which Christina attacked. Mara ended up not being able to hurt the giant scorpion since it used its claw properly to defend itself and catch the spear, but Katharina pierced her spear right through the mouth of the giant scorpion. She knew it was not enough and said, "Pull your spears out and get away." The moment that Christina and Mara used their strength to pull the spear and walk away, Katharina exerted all her strength and raised the scorpion with her spear. The scorpion tried to attack with its tail, but Christina was quick and avoided the attack, and then Katharina lowered the spear with the body suspended in the air from the giant scorpion, making the body of the giant scorpion hit the sand with all its might. Bang! Attack. Hearing Katharina's cry, Mara and Christina were already prepared and attacked on both sides. It's dead. The three looked at each other and smiled. It was another victory they had achieved without being hurt. Right. Let's take the scorpion's body parts and use them now as armor. Katharina thought it was possible to at least use it to make a breastplate. In addition, it also had a tail that could reinforce another spear. Yes, we will do that, Mara agreed. For her, the more defense they had the better. While the mother and two daughters were picking up the parts of the giant scorpion, suddenly a ripple happened on the ground, and before they could react, something as thick as a green tree trunk came towards them, looking like a whip, and whipped the three at the same time. Even when using their shields, the whip broke the shields in half and made the three fly at least 10 meters away, spitting blood. Christina was the quickest to act, and so she took more damage by cushioning the impact, followed by Katharina, and then Mara. Katharina was weaker compared to Christina, and when she was hit that hard, she passed out. Christina was still conscious, but some of her bones were broken on impact. Mara was not much better off. She couldn't even get up, with blood dripping from her mouth. She lifted her face lying on the sand and saw a terrible monster. It was green and almost 300 centimeters tall, with the body of a snake and the face of a lizard, and two green arms very similar to human arms. With blood dripping from her mouth, Mara saw this terrible monster heading towards Christina and Katharina. Panic took over her heart, and Mara was shaken. "Don't approach my daughters," Mara screamed with all her strength. Her eyes became white, and when she held out her hand, something happened. Tick, 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 *__. Connection to the digitized origin established. Scanning started. Process completed. Prototype, portable missile. Launch in 1, 2, 3, and go. __. Whoosh. Erg. The digitized missile caught the creature's chest and dragged it across the sand, taking her away. Mara, who was almost losing consciousness, closed her outstretched hand that launched the digitized missile, and a loud explosion echoed. Ka-boom. A strong shockwave was caused by the explosion, creating a mushroom of smoke and sand. Mom. Christina was surprised to see this, but seeing her mother pass out soon after, it made Christina anxious. She also knew that Katharina was hurt a lot because of the battle, but she didn't have the strength to get up. Her rib was hurting a lot. She believed it was broken, but wasn't sure. So she crawled over to Katharina, who was closest, and saw that she was still breathing. She had just passed out. Sighing with relief, Christina spat blood, and yet she continued to crawl towards Mara. She needed to know if she was breathing. Luan had just arrived at the place where his mother along with his two sisters had disappeared. At the scene, police cars were blocking the street, preventing them from passing. Most likely, they had already noticed something abnormal, and not just his mother and sisters had probably ended up entering the dimensional crack. Now that Luan was close, he clearly saw the dimensional gap. He looked at Ingrid and said, "Let's go in." My mother, Christina, and Katharina accidentally entered there. Okay. Ingrid was anxious and got out of the car. She and Luan ran so fast towards the crack that the spectators only saw a figure passing by. What was this? How should I know? Wasn't it just a strong wind? When Luan and Ingrid entered, the entire situation was total chaos. Many cars were beaten and some people were killed. In addition, there were some men holding pieces of wood and even a fire extinguisher, trying to defend themselves against some giant scorpions and spiders. Bang! Asterisk. There was also a man with a pistol. He used the gun to shoot a giant spider. His aim was good, probably an off-duty cop. Mom! Children's cries and screams were heard, but Luan had no time to waste. He used his sensory perception and realized that his mother and sisters were not in a very good situation. Ingrid, you can stay and help the other victims. I'm going ahead. Luan said those words before running as fast as a rocket. People who noticed Luan and Ingrid's arrival were amazed to see Luan's speed. Ingrid also wanted to run and help Luan, but she knew he was strong and could handle it alone. She saw that she had at least 5 small children in that place. She couldn't just abandon them either. Kicking the ground, Ingrid moved very fast. She came in front of a giant scorpion and punched very hard, making the scorpion fly in the air meters away. She continued to attack the giant scorpions and spiders over and over, leaving everyone who was seeing this happen shocked beyond comprehension. My God, who is this girl? And how can she be so strong? Asterisk. Luan, who ran at full speed, saw the trail of a car being dragged in the desert, and it didn't take long to see his mother's Mercedes. He also saw his mother and sisters lying on the sand floor, and arrived at the moment that Christina was crawling on the floor towards Mara. Something wasn't right here. A few feet away from his mother and sisters, something green was crawling on the ground towards them. Luan moved as fast as lightning and got in between his family and this thing. It was a monster that reminded Luan of the Naga from mythology. Luan's red eyes blinked, and with the speed of lightning his hand cut off the bloody Naga's head. Luan didn't even have time to be surprised by the fact that the Naga was half dead. He went straight over to his mother. Big brother. Christina had tears in her eyes when she saw her big brother. Right after that, maybe from relaxing momentarily, she passed out. Luan first went to his mother, since the vital signs coming from her were more chaotic, and put his hand on her neck. He noticed that she was not breathing. She used all of her body's energy. Luan couldn't imagine what had made her use all of her energy, but he could deduce that it was related to the fact that the Naga was seriously injured. Placing his hands on his mother's belly, Luan closed his eyes, and his negative chi started to enter her body. Luan's negative chi could either deny something or create something. He made the dead cells go out and the living cells duplicate. He also saw that there was blood clotting in Mara's throat, and made the chi pass through the respiratory channels and clear out that which prevented her from breathing. Almost 10 minutes later, Mara's physical and mental state had returned to normal. She was now breathing, and her initially pale face had regained some of its original color. Luan then went to Christina and used his chi to duplicate living cells and remove the dead cells. He saw that she had some cracked bones, even some completely broken ones. However, he couldn't fix that with his chi alone. He needed to bring his family back, and then he could create pills to heal their bones. Going to Katharina, she appeared to be in a better state than Christina, just a few broken bones and blood loss. Luan used his chi to heal her too. After that, he took his mother and sisters very carefully to the car. Backquote. Chapter 68. White powdered fruit. With his mother and sisters in the car, Luan realized how they brought the car here. There was a rope tied to the front of the car. Luan with sensory perception knew that Ingrid had finished killing the beasts that were attacking humans and was bringing them towards him. He still had time. He first went to Naga and with the knife made of a scorpion claw Luan started to dismantle the Naga using his chi around the knife. Luan mainly wanted the Naga's bones, as he would need enough strong bones to be able to create bone reconstruction pills, among some other pills to help his mother and sisters who had fractured and broken some bones. Although the Naga's bones were few, the skull, in particular, was very strong. Luan took the Naga's head that he had cut and plucked all the skin and flesh, leaving the skull clean. He kept it in the trunk of the car and continued to dismantle the Naga. The skin could also be used to create damage-resistant clothing. Despite suffering an attack from what appeared to possibly be a missile or something similar, the Naga only suffered internal injuries from the impact. Its scale and skin were still intact. If it weren't for the fact that Luan was using his chi to surround the knife, he wouldn't have even been able to penetrate the Naga's skin. With that done, Luan sat on the floor and meditated. This was to make it easier to use his sensory perception. He soon found Ingrid along with the people who had accidentally entered the dimensional crack coming in his direction. In addition, he noticed the existence of a tree in the middle of the desert. Luan was not sure, but if it was what he thought it was something of great benefit to him. Luan didn't wait for Ingrid to arrive. He started pulling the car in the direction that he felt the presence of a tree. Not wanting to be disturbed, Luan manifested his aura. This made all the beasts of the desert flee whenever they felt Luan's aura. 20 minutes later, Luan arrived in front of a tree. It was full of vitality and it had some white powdered fruit that looked like cauliflower. It's really the white powdered fruit. Luan was excited that there were 6 of these fruits. He came over and picked up all 6. Usually, this type of tree only grew in the middle of the desert and took all the nutrients from the sand to create white powdered fruit. Although it was not tasty to eat, it was very useful for creating pills. Luan put his hand on the white powdered fruit tree, and used his negative chi, denying the growth of the tree, but leaving the energy that had been collected for all these years. Gradually the tree began to shrink until it became a small seedling of white branches. Luan cupped his hands and removed the seedling from the desert land. What Luan had just done was one of the real reasons why he became an alchemist. He could deny the growth of something, without affecting the energy that was collected, and whenever he planted it again, the growth was several times greater. Besides, just as he could deny it, he could deny what he denied. In other words, he could make it go back to what it was before he denied it. Another reason was when the pill creation process was about to fail, he could deny the process and start over. However, he was not able to do that now, as his negative chi did not reach that stage. Of course, this improved a little because of the technique, negative white dragon transformation. Having finished what he wanted to do, he placed the white powdered fruit tree seedling in the trunk of the car. He also located the dimensional gap that led out of the desert and back to land. Now he just needed to wait for Ingrid, who was bringing the people who were caught by the dimensional gap. There are about 30 people, including old people and children. It will be a lot of work to erase their memories. Although he wanted to talk about the dimensional cracks, he was in a hurry to go home and he couldn't let the journalists surround him because of it. Also, when he would end up presenting the game, he planned to use the army to make people think that they were the ones who had developed this technique and simply used his company to create the game. Being the center of attention now would not bring so many benefits. It was better for him to strengthen himself without being noticed than to draw unnecessary attention. Minutes later, Ingrid was almost there with almost 30 people following her. Some were crying over their lost family members, while others looked everywhere for fear of more monsters appearing. Heroine, you can't walk too fast. You can't leave us here. You must protect us. A big, muscular man said with fear, almost ordering her to protect him. Ingrid ignored him, obviously, and continued to walk in normal steps. Damn, the boy, named Clayton from the Ramos family, swore under his breath and struggled to walk faster. He had been attacked by a scorpion before Ingrid arrived and because of that, he couldn't walk very fast. He, who came from a wealthy family and had never suffered so much, was cursing even Ingrid's dead ancestors. If it weren't for the fact that he feared Ingrid would abandon him, and if he was not in danger, he would have attempted to rape and hurt her. A car. Although some had noticed car tire marks on the way, it was hard to believe that a car had managed to get here. Car engines drew the attention of these monsters, and it was also difficult to drive a car because of the sand throughout the desert. Luan, seeing him leaning against the car, but not seeing Mara, Christina, and Katharina, Ingrid was afraid, but seeing him pointing at the car, she concluded that they were inside. My mother and sisters got hurt by fighting. Luan said vaguely. Oh, Ingrid was concerned, but if it was something too serious, it was possible that he would have left first. Let's go. Luan indicated for them to follow him. Let me ride in the car too, I am hurt. Seeing Luan pull the car, although surprised, Clayton Ramos asked Luan to aid him, almost shouting, as he called everyone's attention to himself. He even tried to hobble more than before to make people feel sorry for him. Because of that, he had won some sympathy from some of the people there. No. Luan's response was short and blunt. How can you do that? Are you going to let an injured person walk in the state such as I am? You might as well let me in the car. Clayton Ramos was angry, but he was not too thick, since he feared Luan's apparent strength. However, in his mind, Luan was a normal person, only slightly stronger than other ordinary people. When he would end up leaving this place, Clayton Ramos vowed to make Luan's life a living hell. This young woman is also very arrogant. A sinister smile formed on Ramos' family heir's face when he stared at the sand beneath him. However, this did not go unnoticed by Luan. Clayton Ramos had been studying abroad all this time in England. He had only just returned a week ago and did not know anything about Luan. This is why he assumed that he was an ordinary person. Chapter 69. Earth Quality Pill. Yes, I have no obligation to take you, Luan said. Nonchalantly. He didn't like how this young man tried to order him around and tried to manipulate the surrounding people to go against him. However, it was not going as this young man had planned. Unlike him, the surrounding people were grateful to Ingrid, and they remembered that this young man came in with her and left first. It was easy to understand that he was in a hurry because of the people inside the car. It took almost an hour to reach the dimensional crack, but before crossing over and back to Earth, Luan used his mental power and made everyone pass out at the same time. After doing so, he used his less than memory control greater than ability and changed the memory of all of them. He also noticed Clayton Ramos' thoughts, but seeing that he was poisoned by one of these scorpions, Luan smirked and did not heal him. The poison that afflicted Clayton took time to act, and it slowly killed the body's cells, causing the body's organs to fail. In less than a month, Clayton Ramos would die a horrible death, and with current medicine, it was impossible to find a cure in time. Finishing his task, Luan also made some of the poorest people take pieces of the beasts that were defeated by Ingrid and carry the pieces with them. When they arrived outside, they would get a fair amount of money from it, in addition to also proving the existence of a place different from our reality. Luan, are you going to leave him like this? Ingrid asked, pointing to Clayton Ramos. Yes, Luan replied nonchalantly. Okay. Ingrid didn't think much about it. She had also noticed Clayton's actions. Although she did not like to kill someone, it was not as if it was their fault, since he was poisoned by a scorpion and not by them. The reason she had asked if he would heal the young man was because she saw Luan heal another person who was also poisoned. Luan only needs a few seconds to make the man vomit all the poison in his body. Come on, I've already used an illusion to alter the perception of others. Not even cameras are going to be able to see us. However, this does not last long. We need to be quick, Luan said in a warning tone. Yes, but what about them? Ingrid asked about the people who were passed out. In 30 seconds they will wake up, and automatically they will walk towards the dimensional crack and leave this place. Don't worry, Luan said. Oh, so let's go. Hearing this, Ingrid was relieved. The moment they arrived outside, Luan saw many people surrounding the place. He then lifted the car and propelled himself, jumping into the air a distance. Ingrid did the same, following him. After taking some distance from the place, Luan put the car back on the road. He had realized the lack of gas in the engine earlier and had already put it back in the car's tank. At least it was enough to get to his house. Get in the car, Luan said, looking at Ingrid who had just arrived behind him. After the two got in the car, they started to move away from the place. Seconds later, screams and applause echoed. It was obvious that this was because people had come out of the dimensional gap. They got out. Ingrid sighed with relief. Why? Did you think I was lying? Luan raised his eyebrow. Of course not. Ingrid quickly denied it and said, I was just worried. Even though we knew they were going to leave, we couldn't guarantee that a beast wouldn't have appeared as soon as we left. About that, you didn't even have to worry. All of the nearby beasts ran away because of me, Luan said. Changing the subject, Ingrid looked at the back seat. Are they going to be okay? Yes, I just need to create some pills, and I'm going to not only make them recover, but also make them stronger, Luan said. He now knew that he had underestimated the speed that the dimensional cracks were showing. If he didn't make his family stronger soon, something even worse than what had just happened could end up happening. We are here. While Luan explained, they arrived in front of the mansion. Luan took control and opened the garage and got out of the car. Help me get them to the gym, Luan said as he turned to Ingrid. Okay. Ingrid nodded and took Christina in her arms. Luan carefully took his mother and took her upstairs. Then he came back and picked up Katharina. Luan, can I help you with anything? Ingrid asked. She was concerned about the current state of Mara, Katharina, and Christina. It's not that you can't, but unfortunately you don't have much control over your blood chi, Luan said. If Ingrid managed to master her blood chi properly, it would be perfect for helping to heal others. Not only that, but it would also be of benefit in the next realm of cultivation. I see. I'm going to work hard and get better, Ingrid said with closed fists. Okay. It's always good to want to improve. Luan patted her on the head and smiled a little. After that, he went down again to the first floor of the house and took the white powdered fruit, and also took the seedling from the white powdered tree. Returning, he said to Ingrid, I will stay in my room creating the pills I need to help them. In the meantime, Stay and watch. If something bad happens, just call me. Okay. Be successful soon. Ingrid wished. Yes. Luan then walked over towards his room. Once there, he went to his closet and took out a suitcase. He also took the cauldron. From the suitcase, he took the fire crystal and also started to separate the ingredients to create the pills. There were only 3 pills he was going to create, and they were all less than bone reconstruction pill greater than. The water pill he had created, he would deliver to them as soon as they finished digesting the ones he was going to create. Taking the Naga's skull, Luan turned it into powder and also added a powdered white fruit. That was because this fruit is rich in qi. If used as an ingredient, it would increase the efficiency of the pill. This was basically a bonus that could be used in almost all types of pills when being created, as it increases the quality and chances of creating a pill. The whole process was slow and fast at the same time. Using the flames from the flame crystal, Luan was already experienced in this sort of thing. After completing the first stage, he just needed to divide everything inside the cauldron into 3 and create 3 pills. The fire got a little warmer, and the temperature in the room went up. Luan was sweating a little, but he didn't care and continued the process until puff. The lid of the cauldron was lifted a little, giving off an aroma of newly created pill. And because of the powdered white fruit, the smell was more seductive than usual. Luan then opened the cauldron and saw 3 pills. A smile curved across his face. After all, there were 3 pills of quality earth. It was only 10% impure. It can be said that it was the best pills he forged since he had gone back in time. All thanks to this powdered white fruit. Luan was happy to have found the powdered white fruit tree. He put everything away and left the room. Chapter 70. Healing. Walking towards the gym, it didn't take long for him to get there. Luan, did everything go well? Ingrid asked anxiously. Luan looked at her and nodded. Yes, everything is ready. That's great. Ingrid blew out a sigh of relief. Luan first approached Christina, who was in the worst condition, and forced her to swallow the pill, using his qi to send the pill to the center of her body. The moment the pill reached the center of Christina's body, the energy inside the pill spread, moving towards the bones of her body. And when Luan found the broken bones, he healed and nourished the bones, forcing each bone to reconstruct. Christina moaned a little pain during the process and ended up opening her eyes. Relax, I'm helping you heal your bones. It will hurt a little. You need to be strong, okay? Luan said softly. Yes, big brother. Christina clenched her teeth and endured the pain she was feeling. After everything was done, Luan said, now swallow this pill. He handed over a crystal blue pill. It was the water pill, which would help to clean the residual impurities left from the reconstructed bones and some of the impurities accumulated in her body. Okay. Christina trusted Luan a lot. She didn't think twice, and swallowed the pill and then started meditating. After finishing with Christina, he next went to his mother. She had to take the Qi collection pill first. Luan was sure that it was his mother who had hurt Naga seriously. He still didn't know how she had done it, since it seemed to be different from the origin that his mother had during his previous life. When she swallowed the pill, Mara's body became more full of life, and Luan also made her swallow the bone reconstruction pill. I need to use the bathroom. Christina, who was weak before and without strength, ran out of the room. She had had this experience before. Ingrid, seeing this, started to sweat coldly. She still remembered when it had happened to her. Luan turned to her and said, do you want to take a pill like that too? It is very good for cleaning impurities from your body. Yes. She was undecided, but in the end, Ingrid accepted. You can take one from this bottle. Luan passed her a bottle with 4 pills in it. Thanks. Ingrid gladly accepted and took out a pill. Taking a deep breath, she swallowed and began to meditate. Seconds later, she ran just as Christina had. Luan smiled and continued with his mother's treatment. Gradually all her bones were rebuilt and those that had been displaced were adjusted to their right placements. Luan. Mara's voice was weak, her throat dry. Wait a minute, I'll get a glass of water. Luan got up and went to get water for his mother. When he returned, Mara was already sitting on the floor and her aura was more serene. For you, drink. Luan handed over the glass of water. Thanks. Mara thanked him and drank the water. Mother, take this pill now. It will help to clean the impurity out of your body. Luan handed her a water pill. Where's Christina? She had only noticed Katharina, so she was worried. She went to the bathroom because of this pill. Don't worry, she's fine, Luan said with a soft smile. Oh, that's good, Mara said with a weak smile and swallowed the pill. After that, Luan went to Katharina. Mara looked at her with an expression of pain but said nothing. She knew that her son was able to heal her daughter. Luan made Katharina swallow the bone reconstruction pill. Gradually Katharina's bones were being healed and rebuilt to be stronger. Mara mainly heard crackling bones returning to the place. It was kind of a creepy sound to hear. Because of the pain, Katharina also woke up. She saw that Luan was close, and asked with a pained voice, "What is happening? Is that you healing me?" "Yes, it will be over soon. Relax and don't move much now," Luan said in his soft voice. Seeing her brother speak so softly, it gave her a feeling of joy, and looking at the familiar roof, she was happy to return home from that desert. "Okay. Thanks, brother." After the whole process was finished, Katharina was feeling better. She could have sworn that her bones had grown stronger, although she had no basis for her supposition. It was just something she felt. "You're welcome. Now take this pill." Luan passed her the water pill. "Will it hurt too?" Katharina was afraid to be in pain again. "Not necessarily. When taking this, it will only make you feel a stomach ache and make you need to go to the bathroom. In addition, it will leave your skin more beautiful and nourished. You may not even need to wear makeup after using it," Luan said in a seductive way. When Katharina heard this, she swallowed the pill so fast she almost choked. Mara, who also heard this, had some expectations. After all, she too was a woman and wanted to be beautiful. But she did not forget that Luan said she would feel a strong need to use the bathroom. After a few minutes, Mara was the first to get up and said, "I'm leaving now." At first, she tried to leave slowly, but she saw that if it was slow things could get ugly for her, so she ran towards her bedroom to use her private bathroom. Luan was alone in the room. He also took a pill and swallowed it. After a few minutes, the pill had already taken effect. Luan then hurriedly left for his room. Due to the effect of the water pill, Mara, Ingrid, Christina, and Katharina had to take a shower afterward. Soon they noticed that in addition to the increase in strength, they also had an increase in their beauty. The happiest among them was Christina, who cried in silence without anyone around. She, who was always called an ugly and dirty girl because of her skin, was happy to be beautiful. "Will Mom, Ingrid, and my big siblings praise me?" Christina wondered. She was so moved that she examined herself in the mirror for a few minutes. Only after she was satisfied did she stop looking. Christina went to the wardrobe and took the dress that she believed was the most beautiful. It was a dark blue dress with white flowers. She shivered a little as she remembered what happened in the desert, but it was only for a fraction of a second. Then she blow-dried her red hair and dressed in the beautiful dress and went down the stairs with expectations. Downstairs, Mara was the first to arrive. She saw Christina and smiled graciously. Mara was so beautiful, so jovial, she didn't even seem to have given birth to 2 children. Plus, her facial features were perfect and symmetrical, and she wasn't even wearing makeup. "Christina, you have become more beautiful, and that dress looks stunning on you," Mara said as she smiled lovingly. "Come here, let your mother hug you." Christina was touched by her mother's words and said, "Hee hee. Mom is also beautiful, even more beautiful than you were before." "Thank you, sweetie." Mara kissed Christina's little face and smiled again. Chapter 71. About Origin. A group of nearly 30 people returned from the mysterious crack. Some of them brought with them parts of scorpions and giant spiders. "How did you guys get out of this place and how is it there?" A reporter asked the group of people. "We managed to find the exit because my daughter took a photo, and coincidentally the crack appeared in the photo, and then, we believed it to be the exit and went to that location." "Can we see the photo?" "Yes, of course." The mother of the 13-year-old girl with long dark hair and light brown eyes showed the picture of a desert, and not far away was the image of the mysterious crack. "This is fantastic. Is it really another world? Could it be that there are fairies and elves?" Many people at the site who saw this were amazed, but they were unaware of the desperation that this group of people had to endure, in addition to the fact that more than 10 people had died inside the crack. This report soon went viral. Many television stations that were on the scene were making this story appear more than once a day, since it was bringing a lot of audience. In the Dimas living room, sitting on the couch, Christina was exceptionally happy to be called beautiful by her family. She still remembered that Luan once said to her that if cultivation continued, people's appearance would improve. Big Brother was right. "Mom, can you explain to me what happened inside?" Luan asked. He was curious as to how his mother was able to launch something like a missile at Naga. "About that, I don't know exactly. Mara started to explain what happened and told about the voice she heard in her mind, about her connecting with a digitized origin. Well, that's more or less what happened. I understand. So I felt that your spiritual power got bigger. Luan became thoughtful and then said, I have some techniques that can help strengthen your spiritual power, but you will need to be at least 20 times stronger to be able to learn this completely. Currently you have already become 10 times stronger, yes. When you reach 15, I can already teach you the first 2 parts of the technique. As such, I will strive to reach that level of power soon. Mara no longer wanted to see her daughters being hurt. She understood that if she had not connected with her origin, something very bad could have happened to her daughters. Just thinking about it made her heart tremble with fear. Brother, do you know if I have an origin and what is it? Katharina asked as she looked at him. She was curious and had some yearning to be able to have the power of an origin. If she had something like that, in the future it would be easier for her to become stronger. Hard to say. Not even I know about mine, Luan said. Each person is different and has different types of origins which can connect with them. In our case, we have many ancestors who were descendants of different types of origins. We can end up connecting to the same origin that one of our ancestors connected to, or we can end up connecting to a completely new origin, which I think is the case with our mother. Is it something like a family tree? Since each path can lead to an origin of an ancestor? Katharina asked. Basically that. Therefore, the origin that connects is indefinite, but the origin that you have the most affinity with will always be chosen. I see that in the case of Christina, she has not yet connected with her origin, but she can already use fire. It is almost certain to say that her origin is something related to fire, Luan said looking at Christina. Changing the subject, Luan continued, Mom, I finished the game. I intend to go to grandfather's farm this weekend. Oh, so fast. Let me see. Mara had high expectations for this game. She knew it would be popular mainly because of the dimensional cracks that were being spread all over the world. Now that from within the dimensional gap some people had brought proof of the other side, it was inevitable that it would convince many people. It's in my office on the laptop. By the way, I still have some unfinished things, and I have a business dinner later, Luan got up and said. Okay, Luan, your work is important, especially for you who started recently. Mara smiled and said, when you get back, we'll talk more about it. Okay, Mom. Luan nodded and looked at Mara and his sisters and said, from now on, avoid going out in the car. We don't know when a new dimensional crack will appear. It would be a problem if you were pulled in again. Until you are at least 20 times stronger, try to train as much as possible. I'm also going to create pills later on to help you grow even more. Okay, Luan, we understand. After what we've been through, we don't want to go through it again, at least not while we're weak, Katharina said with a forced smile. Remembering that they were almost killed, it made her tremble with fear. I'm going to my room to get ready. Ingrid was wearing a casual, post-bath outfit, a white t-shirt, and denim shorts. I'm going to change clothes too. Luan left as soon as he finished speaking. On the way, he went up to his room. He reflected that his mother would be better off training the same body technique as himself, which increased spiritual power. That would be ideal for her origin. Well, when I get back, I need to do some tests with her. Maybe she can already start learning this technique. I also need to teach Katharina another body technique. Luan sighed when he thought there were too many things to do. After changing clothes, Luan now wore a dark gray suit and matching pants in the same color, black social shoes, and a wine red tie with a white dress shirt under the suit. His white hair was combed to the right. Ingrid also finished getting dressed. As she didn't need to wear makeup, it didn't take long for her to get dressed. She wore a dark gray suit with a white button-down shirt underneath and a black skirt that extended to her knee. As for shoes, she wore a 7 cm high heel, making her perfect curves become even more aligned and sexy. Seeing Luan in a suit, although it was no longer a novelty, it caused a little turbulence in her heart. She couldn't resist Luan's charm, and almost stopped walking just to admire him from afar. You look beautiful. Luan's lips curved in a smile when he said that. Ingrid was shy and happy, but she said while pouting, likewise. You are very flirtatious. I bet many women at the company will pass out when they see you arrive at the company's headquarters. Jealous. Luan's smile got even wider. He saw her blush when she heard his question, and he found it amusing. Who's jealous? I just asked a casual question, it has no other meaning whatsoever. Ingrid denied it, but her reaction gave her away. Okay, let's not waste any more time. We still need to take a taxi to get the car, Luan said. He and Ingrid had not gone back to pick up his car, which they had parked away from the incident, after they had rescued his mother and sisters. Yes, you're right, Ingrid nodded. Arriving outside, a taxi was waiting for them. Luan opened the door for Ingrid to enter and also got into the taxi. Minutes later they arrived at their car and said, "Thank you, it's just this far." Luan said to the taxi driver and handed over a 100 Rias bill, "You can keep the change." "Thank you, sir." The taxi driver thanked him and left happily. Although it was not a very large sum, he had only taken them on a small run, so the value was almost 5 times the normal value. Luan walked towards the Lamborghini and pressed the alarm button, unlocking the doors. He opened the door for Ingrid and got into the driver's seat. "Thanks." Ingrid was happy to see the small gestures that Luan made for her. Even though he didn't need to do so, it wasn't like it was difficult, but that in itself showed how much he cared about wanting to please her and treating her like a lady. Luan just smiled in response and started the car. Taking the highway, he drove towards the headquarters of the company. "By the way, do you think Elias will accept the proposal you made him this morning?" Ingrid asked. "I believe so. It's not like it's a disadvantage for him," Luan replied. "Another thing, how were they not able to see even the car when they left the dimensional gap?" Ingrid asked, curious. "I used 2 types of skills together, invisibility and illusionism." Luan gave a brief explanation. Invisibility was the ability to make the user invisible to the naked eye, as this power made light pass through one's body, and did not reflect any image to people's eyes. Even so, people could still touch, hear, smell and read the minds of those who used this skill. The ability, however, could not work with other rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, infrared, etc. Anyone using invisibility could still be seen with special equipment. Illusionism, on the other hand, was the ability to alter the perceptions of others, creating false images and sounds capable of deceiving the 5 senses. Anyone who could use the 2 together was often a force to be reckoned with. Chapter 72. Being followed again. While talking, Luan and Ingrid arrived at the company's headquarters. Luan drove to the garage and left the car there. "Welcome, CEO Luan and Secretary Ingrid," the receptionist said with great respect. She looked mostly at Ingrid with admiration and a little envy. Ingrid's current position was envied by many people at the company's headquarters. Luan nodded. "Thanks." Ingrid smiled and followed Luan. In Luan's office, he began to busy himself with some things that came up while he was gone. As for the game, he sent the link to his mother and gave her an account to use as an administrator. Talk. Asterisk. "Luan, I'm coming in." Ingrid knocked once on the door and opened it. "Yes." Luan looked at her. "I have new information from Aid Construction Company." Ingrid put some papers on Luan's desk. The company Haven is about to build a new store and is considering hiring Aid Construction Company. In those documents, you have the information. Hey, very well. Luan praised her for gaining access to this information and had already thought about contacting the branch of the company that was the construction company. Although it was not the focus of Dimas Corporation, there was a subsidiary, Dimas Construction Company, and it was considered one of the best in Brazil. If Dimas Construction got in touch with Haven and said that they were interested in making the new Haven store, it was easy to say who they would choose. I'm going back now. There are still some things for me to do." Ingrid smiled and left shortly thereafter. In his office, Luan started to analyze new projects. He tried to recall as many projects as possible that continued to work even after the Third Awakening. Ingrid was sitting in her living room until her cell phone rang. She saw that it was her mother's number and answered. "Good afternoon, Mother." "Ingrid, I have some good news. I just managed to get 3x stronger." Amanda's voice was full of enthusiasm when she said this. "That's nice. I'm happy for you, Mom," Ingrid said with a smile. "Ah yes, daughter," changing the subject. Amanda's voice changed dramatically to a worried one. "Do you know anything about what's going on with your sister? I haven't heard from her in her voicemail cell phone for many days every time I call. I don't know anything about her either. But I'll try to see if I can get any information from her. As soon as I get it, I'll let you know." Although Ingrid didn't like her sister, she promised to try to find out some information about her so as not to worry her mother. "Thank you, Ingrid. I'm going to hang up now. I'm going to cover another shift at the hospital. Bye, Mom loves you Tilda." Saying that, the two said goodbye and hung up. "I don't know if Luan would be willing to help me find my sister," Ingrid murmured in her mind. She had already told Luan everything her sister had done to her, and maybe if she asked him to help her sister, Luan would think she was a fool for being too stupid to care about her sister's well-being. Despite believing that Luan wouldn't help her, she still wouldn't want Luan to think badly of her for wanting to help her sister. Asterisk. It was almost 2200 when Luan finished all his day's appointments. He had just left a business dinner and was in the car with Ingrid on the way home. What is it? You looked restless all night. Did something happen? Luan asked as he glanced at her. It's no big deal, it's just. Never mind. Ingrid was going to say something but decided against it. Speak. You don't have to be reserved with me, Luan said as he stopped the car at the red light and looked at her. Well, my mom called. She said that my sister has been missing for a long time, and I thought you could find her the same way you did over at the Xing clan. Ingrid didn't dare look at him as she tapped her index fingers together, looking nervous when talking about it. It's all right, Luan replied. Ah, what did you say? Ingrid was surprised and looked at him. I said okay, I'll look for her for you. Luan saw that the light turned green and accelerated. Thank you, Luan, Ingrid said gratefully. It's not a big deal. Don't worry, Luan smiled. While driving, Luan noticed that he was being followed. However, he didn't want to waste time with them. He just made his car invisible to the naked eye and continued to drive and make distance from where he had been. And from a distance, he tossed a 5-cent coin with his chi in the direction of the car that was following him. Inside the silver car that was following Luan. Where did he go? His car suddenly disappeared. A henchman said. I don't know. I just don't know. The driver of the car, wearing a green mohawk, said confusedly. Damn, how did he manage to lose us like that? There were 4 men in the car, and they were all confused by Luan's disappearance. And then, whoosh, asterisk. Something quiet went through the driver's head and caught the head of the man in the back seat behind the driver. Bang, asterisk. Crack, asterisk. The car skidded and hit the front of a metal handrail that in the middle was made of Bradesco banked glass, and the iron front part that held the handrail came out and pierced the heads of all 4 men inside the car. An accident happened. My God, there have been a lot of accidents lately. Spew. Asterisk. When they got a little closer, the nearby people saw the heads of the 4 men totally destroyed by the iron bars. Many people could not help vomiting. It was a very brutal scene. Even pieces of the brains got stuck at the beginning of the 2 iron bars. Asterisk. Luan, was that you? Ingrid asked. She saw him throw something out the window but failed to notice exactly what he threw. At that moment, Luan had already made his car visible again. He turned to Ingrid and said indifferently, there were 4 men in a car following us, and I felt his aura and their intention was to kill us. I only paid them with the same currency. Ingrid looked back and with her improved vision, she saw what had happened to the 4 men. She asked, totally impressed, did you do this knowing it was going to happen? More or less, it was 50% likely of that happening, Luan said. You could say that luck was not on their side. Well, even if it had been, only 2 of them had a chance to survive. Wow. Even so, this is incredible. Ingrid didn't even care about the lives of these people. If it were before, maybe she would have felt sorry for them, but something inside her had been changing little by little. She further asked, will I ever be able to do something like this? You can, as long as you train a little and use a little math to calculate the route the car would take when the driver was killed. All of this is easily calculated with mathematics, but to do such things, it takes practice, Luan replied. Stopping at the next red light, Luan took his cell phone and quickly deleted all the footage close to the accident. Even if the chances were slim of there being footage of him tossing the coin, it was better to prevent such evidence from existing. Chapter 73. Caught in the act again. Luan took a shower and put on a casual green and gray outfit as soon as he returned home. Going over to his desk, he opened the laptop and started searching for Monica's whereabouts. His research led to the Hamibo mansion. As security at the mansion was high, there were many cameras that Luan had to choose to peer from when hacking in. Stronger. Yes, put that stick deep inside me. A young pregnant woman, riding on top of a man in a wild and experienced way, screamed with pleasure. Bitch tilde, I just wanted to punish my son, having sex with his pregnant girlfriend, but I didn't think you'd have such a good time. Take this is how you like it, yes. The middle-aged man hit the young pregnant woman's ass hard, making her moan in pain and pleasure. Yes, I love it. Fuck me hard, father-in-law. She couldn't control her screams and moans of pleasure. Luan turned off the camera at the same time that a camera in the Hamibo mansion took in the guest room. There, he had seen a naked girl riding on top of the Hamibo family leader, Samuel Hamibo, Wagner Hamibo's father. I think that means she is fine. Luan shook his head, getting rid of those nasty images from his mind. Ring. Asterisk. Yes. Luan answered the cell. Luan, you bastard, you tricked me with those Petrobras shares. Luan hung up. It was Wagner Hamibo calling. What an incredible coincidence. He says I cheated him. I wonder what his reaction will be when he finds out what his father is doing. Luan had a cold smile on his face as he thought about this. In Luan's past life, Wagner Hamibo had hurt him a lot. For revenge, Luan thought about now sending the video of Wagner's father having sex like an animal with Wagner's supposed girlfriend. However, he decided not to do that. He saw by the volume of Monica's belly that she was pregnant. If only after she birthed the child, Wagner found out that the child was not his, and found out that she slept with his father, it would end up destroying him. Logically, Wagner Hamibo did not give up but called again. I cheated you. Tell me, how did I do that? Luan didn't even wait for Wagner to speak and asked that question. Don't misunderstand me. You certainly knew what Saudi Arabia was going to do, motherfucker. You need to fix this. If not, before threatening me, think twice if you are capable. And if you were deceived, you can only blame yourself. In fact, don't forget that it was you who came to me, not the other way around. If that's all, see you later. Luan hung up again. In his room, Wagner Hamibo threw his cell phone against the wall. He was seething with anger and was grounded for 1 month in his room. His father had confined him to the room for that long. Worse, his father forbade him to receive intimate visits from his new girlfriend, Monica Anjos. Asterisk. Luan left and went to the gym. As there was still 1 hour before dinner was ready, he intended to meditate until then. Sitting on the floor, he swallowed the Chi collection pill and performed the technique, negative white dragon transformation. The Chi of heaven and earth began to manifest and move towards Luan in the form of smoke, but as white as clouds. The energies of heaven and earth that went towards Luan were kind of luminous, very similar to the aura. Almost 40 minutes later, Luan opened his eyes. From his eyes, a white neon light with red burst forth, but soon returned to normal. Chi refining. Level 4. Luan murmured. At this level, with only his negative Chi, he had 23 times the fighting power of a normal man. Luan's entire body was surrounded by a white aura, pure as snow, serene as a calm lake. Luan made some striking demonstrations without using physical force, only Chi, and was satisfied with the result. Luan found himself sweaty and went to his room to take another quick shower. When he was about to get dressed after he got out of the shower, he heard a knock at the door and Ingrid's voice resonated. Luan. Ingrid called out his name. I just got out of the shower. I'm changing clothes, Luan said. Oh. Ingrid's voice echoed in surprise, and she apparently coughed and said, dinner is ready. I just came to warn you. Okay. Wait just a little while, and I'll be right out, Luan replied while wearing a pair of white boxer briefs. After wearing a green short-sleeved t-shirt and dark green knee-length shorts, he left the room and came across Ingrid. Ingrid's long blonde hair was down, cascading halfway down her back. She was wearing a sexy purple t-shirt that showed half her belly, a casual long-sleeved v-neck, and tight black leggings over her perfect curves. Luan mainly saw Ingrid's well-defined belly with a thin waist, which was not the same as a man's, full of a six-pack, but had a small relief, and Luan found it very sexy and seductive. He was silenced by how sexy and seductive his girlfriend was. Luan approached, being only inches away from Ingrid, surprising her. Luan. Ingrid's heart skipped a beat. She could feel Luan's breath very close to her head. It made her feel anxious and nervous. Is he going to kiss me? Wrapping his hands around her thin waist, placing her body in his, Luan whispered in Ingrid's ear, Can I kiss you? Why does he ask the obvious? Ingrid nodded, intoxicated. Luan's lips curved in a smile and his mouth moved closer to hers. Just being 2 inches apart, they could feel each other's breath. Luan. Ingrid, come quickly. Katharina, who was running up the stairs, froze on the last step. She saw a scene she didn't want to see, something she was unfortunate enough to have seen the night before as well and had ended up seeing it again. My God, why don't you get a room? Katharina screamed and ran down the stairs with her face all red. Idiot Baka, it's all your fault. Ingrid's face turned beet red when she was caught in the act by her sister-in-law. Yes. Luan smiled without caring and whispered, Should we continue? Yes. I mean, No. Ingrid fumbled. She stepped away and turned her heel, and left. In his previous life, Luan never had had moments like this with a girl. This was also something new for him. And he felt a strange but wonderful sensation whenever he flirted with Ingrid that was something inexplicable, even for him. Then Luan also walked and went down the stairs. Arriving in the kitchen, sitting around the dining table, Ingrid and Katharina still had their faces flushed. Luan didn't even blush when he saw Katharina looking at him with resentment. He just sat in the chair next to Ingrid. Mom, everything looks very delicious. Luan looked at her and praised her efforts. The table was filled up with food with very large portions and variety. Mara smiled and said, eat at will. There is a lot of food, after all. Yes, I will devour everything, Luan said playfully. Me too, Christina said happily, making everyone laugh. Soon after, dinner became heated while they talked and laughed while eating. In fact, Mother, have you heard what happened to Petrobras? Luan asked. Yes, I saw it in the newspaper. Mara smiled coldly. The Hamibo head called me, saying that it wouldn't be like this. Hee. They were the ones who sought their own death, and yet want to blame me. How laughable is that? This is normal. After all, they lost billions of dollars. It is always easier to blame others than to assume your own guilt, Luan said. Nonchalantly. This had always been the case, and even after the Third Awakening, it had not changed. Even if something went wrong due to someone's own negligence or inferiority, it was always easier to blame someone than to admit one's own mistakes. Changing the subject, I played the game, Luan, Katharina said. Me, Mom, and Christina were playing a good part of the day. It was fun. I'm sure it will be successful. Yes, big brother, it was a lot of fun. Christina said cheerfully. I see. I'm glad you liked it. Luan smiled and looked at his mother and said, Mother, this Saturday I intend to go meet with grandfather. Okay. Let's all go together. I still haven't introduced Christina to him yet. Mara smiled at Christina and said, he looks stiff and moody, but he is very kind to his family. You don't have to be nervous when we go there, okay? Yes. Christina nodded. Chapter 74. Poisoned. Ingrid. Luan looked over at Ingrid. Yes. I already found out where your sister is. Luan thought of the best way to say it and said ambiguously. Well, she is very well, I must say. She was having fun and playing a game with the leader of the Hamibo family in a guest room. In fact, it looks like she is pregnant and her father is Wagner Hamibo, or at least that's what she's saying, apparently. Quote. Ingrid was speechless at her sister's level of shame. She was the personification of a woman who would do anything to get along in life. She was bold enough to have sex with her supposed boyfriend's father. Pregnant. Ingrid murmured and considered the possibility of it being Bernardo's son, but she kept that to herself. She then added, thank you for doing this for me, Luan. My pleasure, Luan said and continued to eat. Mara changed the subject. Luan, are you going to teach me and your sister a body technique later? Yes, I plan to do that, Luan said. In fact, the body technique that I will teach you both is the same as the one I use. It will be better for you who use spiritual energy. But it is an advanced technique. It is likely that you and Mother will not be able to train for a long time during the day, however, the result will be better in the long run. I understand. I've seen you train and I can understand how complex this technique is, Mara said with determination, but I want to try. This is the ideal. Luan smiled. Asterisk. That same night, Clayton Ramos was feeling particularly happy. He showered while humming. He loved fame, and because of what happened in the mysterious crevice, because he left alive, he had received a lot of attention. Suddenly, his face turned green, and then he cried out in pain and agony. Asterisk ah. Asterisk. His hand slid in the bathtub the moment he tried to get out of it, then he fell with his face on the floor. Blood dripped from his nose and his forehead turned blood red from the impact. He tried to scream for help, but blood got stuck in his throat. His body began to convulse on the cold floor of the bathroom. He feared his death. Tears streamed from his eyes while he was unable to breathe. Because of the previous shout, some employees had heard but were unable to enter the bathroom, as the door was closed. How? Asterisk. Young master. The maids knocked on the door as they called for him, but there was no answer. This made them anxious. Someone call a security guard to break down the door. The chief maid screamed. Yes. The maids did not dare to be slow and ran very fast. The head maid had tears streaming down her eyes as she knocked desperately on the door. She was the one who had raised and cared for Clayton Ramos while his parents were busy. Although he had been aggressive and unkind, he still for the most part treated her well and she loved him as her own son. Clayton, can you hear me? Answer me. She screamed loudly through the door, but there was no answer. Chief maid, get out of the way. A big, strong man asked her to move away from the door. She then stepped away from the door. The man ran towards the door and collided against it with his large, strong body almost 2 meters high against the door. Bang. Asterisk. Crack. Asterisk. The lock on the door broke and the door slammed open. Bang. It was then that they saw Clayton Ramos naked, lying on the floor, with his face the color of pale green. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. The maids saw that Clayton's family jewel looked like a turtle head wanting to get inside. It was smaller than a little finger, but they didn't dare comment on that at this moment. My God. God, don't let him die. The maid approached and her face went pale when she felt Clayton Ramos's pulse, and she murmured before she passed out, Young master. Is he dead? The other maids shivered. They were very afraid to see the chief maid pass out. Has anyone called the doctor yet? The security guard asked. Yes, he is coming now, one of the maids responded. Let me pass. An old woman in her 70s holding a suitcase appeared. Doctor, please save the young master. The maids begged, not because they liked him, but because if something happened to Clayton Ramos, it could reflect badly on them. The only one who really liked him was the head maid. The other maids, mostly young and beautiful, and were all international. Yes, I will do my best, said the old doctor. She came over and knelt on the floor, not caring that he was naked. She felt a pulse and saw that he was pulseless. She started the resuscitation process, but then her face went pale. She had been poisoned by mouth-to-mouth breathing. God, take me to a hospital right away, I was poisoned. And take the young master too. The old doctor's voice became weak and she passed out. The poison of the mutant desert scorpion took time to take effect and most of the time it was asleep in the victim's body, but when it came into action, it was like many living bacteria and began to kill all living organs and multiply. At that moment, Clayton Ramos has already lost the living cells of the heart and other important internal organs, and even in death, the poison remained replicating until the entire body was dead. As long as it was alive, the poison still lived, and if someone touched it carelessly, they would also be poisoned. The worst was the doctor who made direct contact when doing mouth-to-mouth breathing. This gave the poison access to enter her body and went straight to her brain. If not treated in minutes, she would also die. Don't touch it. A paranoid maid shouted cautiously, if those two are poisoned, if we were careless, we could have also become poisoned. This maid was always like that, she suspected everything. But because of what she said, the other maids were also afraid of being poisoned. Use sheets to cover them, and we can carry them, another maid said. Did someone call the ambulance? I called, another maid replied. There were a total of 6 maids and 3 security guards inside Clayton Ramos' room who had access to his private bathroom. Let us men carry them, one of the 3 in security said. Asterisk. In the gym, Luan said, Ingrid, can you teach Katharina the body technique you know? Yes, I will do that, Ingrid nodded. Mom, I'm going to teach you the technique I use, Luan said as he looked at her. Yes. Mara nodded and paid close attention to Luan. There are a total of 48 movements. I will teach them slowly for you, Luan said and started making the moves. Step by step, Luan taught his mother the 48 movements of the technique. Divine spiritual body. By training this technique, although her body would not become flexible like a snake, she would still remain flexible and at the same time, she would increase her spiritual power. Ingrid, on the other hand, taught the 36 movements of the technique, Queen Snake's body. Chapter 75. The Truth. It was almost 2 a.m. and Luan started to recite the mantra of body technique to his mother. After she memorized the technique, he handed her 2 different pills, blood pill and chi collection pill. At the time that Luan taught his mother to practice the body technique, he was also training. Now he needed to meditate. He also swallowed a pair of the same 2 pills. Ingrid and Katharina were also practicing, while Christina had already finished that part and had gone to shower to sleep. After finishing practicing, Luan returned to his room but did not go to sleep. He took the Type 3 metal meteor and cut 2 pieces the size of a glass ball and put the Type 3 metal back. He also took the fire crystal and took out a few small pieces, smaller than the size of a grain of rice. After doing so, he began to create 2 artifacts, molding them with his chi. Although it was more difficult to do this way, As they were two small items, it only took Luan 1 hour to create what he intended to do. Asterisk. The next morning it was Wednesday, the 10th. Ingrid woke up early, and always knowing when it was her mother's shift at the hospital, she called her to let her know what had happened to Monica. After doing so, she showered and dressed in a dark blue suit and a white button-down shirt underneath. She wore black dress pants that extended to the shin and black high heels. Today I'm going to wear a bun. Ingrid stood in front of the bathroom mirror, deciding what hairstyle she was going to wear. Done. Ingrid smiled to herself, pleased with the result, and left the bathroom after putting pink lipstick on her lips. Walking to the bedroom door, she opened it and left. After going down the stairs, she turned left towards the kitchen. Luan was making breakfast, wearing a green apron. In passing, it was quite attractive to Ingrid. She calmed down after taking a deep breath and walked towards him. Good morning, Ingrid said. Good morning. Luan turned and kissed her lips. It was a quick kiss, a simple touch of lips, but that intimate gesture still made her feel happy. However, she ignored the fact that he was in the kitchen, and when she looked towards the dining table, she saw Mara and Katharina looking at her with great interest. Go on. Don't mind us, Mara provoked. It only made Ingrid blush more. Ingrid turned away from Luan and walked to the table with her face still red. She tried to act naturally when she said, Good morning, Mara, Katharina. Good morning, the two said with strange smiles. After Ingrid sat down on a chair around the table, Christina's voice echoed from outside the room. Good morning. She was wearing a casual gray dress with her hair tied in a ponytail. Good morning. They all greeted her, and Christina sat down next to Mara. Ingrid, have you gotten used to your new job yet? Mara, not wanting to embarrass her daughter-in-law, asked. Very much so. I feel very comfortable working there, Ingrid replied. Although it had been a bit of a problem once, it was no big deal. That's nice, Mara said with a gentle smile. If you need help with anything, you can always talk to me. You can treat me like family, things don't have to be reserved with me. If you want, you can do the same as Luan, Katharina, and Christina and call me mom. I think calling you mother is just a bit. I'm fine, I'm still not ready or comfortable about that. Well, I'll do my best to try eventually, Ingrid said. Awkwardly. It was strange to call her boyfriend's mother by mother. She did not understand the custom of Luan's family to ask for something like this, but if Mara liked her to do that, maybe she could start practicing. If you don't feel comfortable you don't have to, Mara laughed and said, just take your time. Know that you can treat me like I'm your mother, and you don't need to be polite when you want to ask anything or need me for something. I see, thank you. Ingrid was calmer when she heard that and smiled. Here it is, scrambled eggs with bacon and sliced bread. Luan started to put what he had cooked on the table after he finished cooking. Removing his apron, he sat down and started eating. Remembering one more thing, Luan said while looking in the direction of his mother, Mother, you will need to change cars. Mara replied, I had already seen the current condition of the car after we had escaped from that desert. I intend to buy a new one. The others I have are all sports cars that only have 2 seats. Yes, I think so too. Luan suggested, if you want, I may be able to choose a car for you, Mom. Just look on the internet for the car you want, and I can go and buy it. Let me think. It's not like I need a car right away, Mara replied. 30 minutes later, they finished eating. Mom, I'm leaving now, see you later, Luan said, saying goodbye. Ingrid also said goodbye with a hug and a kiss on the cheek and followed Luan to the garage. After leaving with the car, taking the highway, Luan drove towards the company's headquarters. Although there was a little traffic, the path was smooth. Asterisk. 2050 Luan and Ingrid finished what they had to do at the company. Luan was driving the green Lamborghini. Ingrid asked, Are we going home? Yes. Did you want to go somewhere? Luan asked as he glanced at her. Yes, the motel. The car skidded to the right and then to the left until Luan came around and controlled the steering wheel and went back to the track. Is it all right? Ingrid was concerned. Yes, I was just surprised. Luan sighed and stopped the car on the shoulder. Are you sure about this? Yes. Ingrid blushed a little, but her determination was not affected. We are dating, aren't we? I think it's normal to do such things. She added in a seductive voice, at least I do, but don't you? Of course I want to, Luan said. He looked with his piercing eyes at her and kissed her lips. Let's go. Luan started the car and went back to the road. The whole path was silent. Ingrid had her own motives and Luan had his own in turn. Olympus Motel. Luan got in and drove to the parking lot and left the car. He opened the door for Ingrid and the two walked hand in hand to the reception area. Luan noticed mainly that Ingrid's hand was sweating with nervousness. It made him sigh and affirmed his determination to tell her what he was practically hiding from her. Taking the best room in the motel, Luan booked it for the night, and together with Ingrid they went to the reserved room with the room key in his hand. Arriving in front of the room, Ingrid felt even more nervous, but at no time did she think of going back on what she said. Opening the door, they saw a large room with a sofa in the back, a bed, and jacuzzi on the right, and a drinks counter and a round glass table on the left. On top of the bed, red roses were scattered, which they also had near the whirlpool. Ingrid, come here. Sit with me first. Luan brought her to the sofa, and they sat next to each other. Yes. Ingrid turned and looked intently at Luan's seductive red eyes. Luan took both her hands and asked, Ingrid, what do you remember about that night? That night, do you mean the night I was drugged and ended up losing my virginity? Ingrid was still a little sensitive when talking about this subject. Yes, what do you remember? Luan asked. She was a little thoughtful, trying to remember, and blushed a few times and said, not much, just that I pushed you on the bed and then. Well, we had sex. Well, yes and no. Luan took a deep breath and said, I'm going to be direct, okay. That night, you actually got on top of me, and then, you were very close to putting my penis inside you, but, Ingrid was now confused. Didn't they get to do it? But she vaguely remembered what they did. But then, you stopped your actions and said, no, I can't give you this place, but I think it's okay if it's the other one. Luan said. Until he felt a little awkward talking about it, he never saw the right moment to say that she was still a virgin and at the same time was not. Ingrid got up, totally in shock. She looked at Luan totally surprised. She covered her eyes in shame and tried to remember, but she couldn't. She then asked with her eyes closed and exclaimed, but it bled. The rectum does not have the same elasticity as the vagina, so it is not uncommon to have minor bleeding, Luan said, to the point that even he was embarrassed. I researched this, and apparently it is normal to bleed a little during anal sex. My God, what a shame. Ingrid collapsed with her face on the sofa and could not even look at Luan because she was ashamed. She actually started to vaguely remember what happened. When Luan told her all this, she started to remember what she had done. All the courage she initially had was gone. All she wanted to do was run from that place. Chapter 76. Menstruation, R18. Luan, I'm going to the bathroom to calm down. There are many things I need to think over right now. Ingrid didn't look at him. She said this with her head down, almost touching the couch. Okay, take your time. Luan already imagined that this would happen, but he still told her the truth. Ingrid got up and went to the bathroom. Walking to the bathroom, she opened the door and closed it. Lifting the lid off the toilet, she sat down with the intention of peeing. It was when she was peeing that she noticed that there was blood together with the urine. Right now, Ingrid was distressed with her own thoughts whether to go further or not. Unexpectedly, she had gotten her period. This was also the first time she had gotten her period after meeting Luan. She saw her panties soiled with blood and sighed. Luckily, she always carried tampons in her purse. However, she remembered that she had left her bag on the couch. Taking a deep breath, she shouted, Luan, can you bring my bag? Yes. Luan replied. He took the bag from the couch and walked to the bathroom and then handed the bag through the door to Ingrid's small extended hand. Thanks. Ingrid took the bag and closed the door again. Minutes later, she left the bathroom. She went over to the couch that Luan was sitting on and said, Luan, my period has come down. I kind of imagined the moment you asked me to take the bag for you. Luan's answer surprised Ingrid. She saw that he didn't seem affected by this. Don't you think it's too much of a coincidence, and I'm making up an excuse? Ingrid couldn't help asking. No, not in the least, because I wouldn't force you to do that. Luan pulled her hand to sit beside him and said, looking into her eyes, Ingrid, this is all new for me too. Look, even now my heart is racing. Ingrid put her hand on Luan's chest and felt his heart pounding. Luan continued, I'm sure of one thing. I already love you, and not because I want to have sex with you, but because I want to be with you. Holding her hands, he knelt in front of her. From his pocket, he took out a velvet box. Ingrid's heart, seeing this, beat like a drum. A blush rose on her beautiful cheeks when she finally realized what was going on. Luan said softly and seductively, Ingrid, I love you and I want you to be officially my girlfriend. You accept. He opened the box and inside the box were 2 green wedding rings with red gemstones. What surprised Ingrid the most is that she felt a strong concentration of chi coming from the pair of rings. Yes, yes, of course, I accept. Ingrid threw herself into Luan's arms, tears streaming down her eyes. She could expect 1,001 things at that moment, but none of them would be Luan asking her out. Luan helped her dry her tears in silence, and without saying a word, the two looked at each other with passionate eyes and kissed. Later, Luan placed the ring on the ring finger of her right hand, and she also did the same for him, placing the ring on the ring finger of his right hand. They went no further than that, obviously. After all, Ingrid didn't lie about having her period. Luan, if you want, we can do the same as last time. Being very sincere, she was very afraid. But she was so happy that she thought she could make some sacrifices to make the man she loved happy. Luan smiled gently and kissed her forehead and said, "Don't force yourself. I'm in no hurry, and I'm a cultivator, have you forgotten? I can suppress my desires." Thank you. Ingrid thanked him. Knowing how much he cared for her, it made her happy. We can still do it in the future. Ingrid shuddered on Luan's shoulders. Yes. Luan patted her on the back. Ingrid thought of something and approached Luan's face and kissed him. Red-faced, she said in an extremely soft voice, "What if? What if I help you relieve yourself?" You. Luan had already suppressed the blazing fire inside him, but she had to tell him that. Ingrid's face was redder than a tomato, and she said in a mosquito voice, "I'm serious, I want to help you. Are you really going to do this?" Luan's mood changed immediately. Luan's spirits improved, and he was extremely excited. "Yes, well, I've never done it before, but I will try my best," Ingrid said timidly, but determined to do so. "Do you know how to do this?" Luan raised an eyebrow. "I saw it in movies." Ingrid hid her face with both hands. She had watched a porn movie before proposing to Luan to go to a motel. She wanted to know what to do at the time of the act. Luan said, "Let's get up first." "Yes." Ingrid nodded shyly. Luan got up and saw her get up and go with her hands shaking on the belt of his pants. She timidly untied the belt and pulled down her pants, swallowing her nervousness. Ingrid was so nervous that she ended up pulling Luan's underwear down, and she was almost shocked by the size of Luan's younger brother. It was bigger than she had seen in the movie. "You can hold him if you want," Luan prompted Ingrid and pressed her little hand against his younger brother. "So hot. Very big, thick, hard, and surprisingly soft," Ingrid murmured in shame. Ingrid took control, pushing Luan to sit on the couch. She kept going down and up with her little hand on Luan's younger brother until she slowly bowed. "Oh," Luan groaned. Lifting Ingrid's hair, he looked at her lustful actions and was greatly encouraged. Although he was unable to really become one with Ingrid now, it made Luan feel a greater sense of accomplishment. After a long time, Ingrid covered her mouth and sat down. She spat a bit of a milky white liquid to the side. "Was that good?" Ingrid looked at Luan, and when she saw his satisfied face, she felt very happy. The guilt in her heart lessened to some extent, and she didn't feel so bad after helping Luan. "Yes, a lot." After saying that, he went out and fetched a towel and gave it to her to wipe her mouth and the floor. With that, the two sat back on the couch and were silent for a while. Ingrid in particular looked at the ring on her finger. The more she looked, the more she found it beautiful. "This is not an ordinary ring, is it?" Ingrid murmured. Luan heard what she said and replied, "Correct, it was created using a special type of metal and using a special fire crystal. With that, you can create a small fire barrier that has very high defense. To be easy for you to imagine, not even if I use all my strength would I be able to break the barrier. Of course, this is not so incredible in itself, since after the energy of the ring ends, the barrier will break. In addition, it can also create flames, although not very strong." "Thank you, Luan." Ingrid hugged him. "I am very happy." Chapter 77. Isadora Vasconcelos. Leaving the motel and arriving in the garage, Luan turned off the car alarm and opened the door for Ingrid. Opening the driver's door and sitting down, Luan fastened his belt. Leaving the motel, Luan drove to the highway. Driving at 100 kilometers per hour, it didn't take long for them to arrive at the street of his house. Arriving home, Luan got out of the car and opened the door, and held out his hand to Ingrid. "Thanks." Ingrid was particularly happy that night. Not only did she confirm their relationship, but she had received an alliance created by Luan as a symbol of their relationship. Leaving the garage, Luan walked to the front door of the house. Unlocking the key and disabling the security alarm, he opened the door. Upon entering the house, everything was in complete silence. It wasn't too late at night, but it wasn't too early. Glancing at her watch, Ingrid saw that it was 12:23 p.m. Let's go to the kitchen. Mom must have left us something to eat. Luan went towards the kitchen and Ingrid followed his side. Ring. Asterisk. Luan took his cell phone and answered. Hello, Elias. Yes, it's me, Elias said. Luan, I thought a lot and decided to accept your proposal. After Luan proposed to him to train a group of people with special powers and to be their leader at Luan's command, Elias was very uncertain whether to accept such an offer or not. But after talking to his mother and father, it was left to him to decide whether to accept it. Furthermore, Elias' father said that if he wanted to do that, he would support him. Elias was very surprised by his father's reaction, as he expected it to be counted, but not only was he not against it, but he also encouraged it. This was very strange, but it also made Elias more comfortable with accepting Luan's proposal. I understand. It's good to hear that, Luan said. You can come to Dimas Corporation headquarters tomorrow, and we can talk more about it in my office. Luan already had some people in mind to recruit. All of them are not the most outstanding in power but in loyalty. Luan preferred loyal people over someone strong who could betray him at any time. I will do this, Elias said. I'm going to hang up now. Until tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Turning off his cell phone, Luan saw that Ingrid had already heated up the food left for them. Thanks. Luan thanked her for heating the food. You're welcome, Ingrid said with a jolly laugh. Asterisk. Sitting cross-legged in the gym, Luan sighed as he murmured, I still can't feel my origin. What exactly is it? In his former life he had the origin of the spiritual tree. Thanks to this, he had a very vast capacity for spiritual power. Perhaps it was also because of this that his mother connected to an origin that was related to spiritual energy. Ingrid was still meditating while Luan got up and left. After taking a shower, Luan stayed in his room, sitting on the bed while drying his hair. Thinking about it now, I should create something similar that can protect my mother and sisters. Leaving the towel on the bed, he walked over and dodged the table in the middle of the room, and reached the brown wardrobe. Open at the bottom were all the items of value that he has obtained so far. Picking up a black suitcase, he brought it to the table in the middle of the room and went back to get another black suitcase and put it next to the first suitcase. Opening it, it had many things inside like animal teeth, animal skin, rare herbs, fire crystal, energy crystal, metal type 3, fruit seed powder, and fruit powder. For Christina and Katharina, I will make rings. For Mother, I will make a pair of earrings. After determining what to do, he began to cut the type 3 metal stone into 4 pieces and cut a few small pieces of the fire energy crystal. Luan knew he couldn't be sloppy and do something ugly. If not, even if it was protective, his mother and sisters might not be so comfortable using it, and he would only lose 1 hour of time to adjust some more of the details. The pair of earrings had the appearance of a very bright and beautiful red drop of water, with the green type 3 metal frame, and 2 smaller red crystals at the top. The 2 rings that he created had the same appearance, and he etched into both rings a formation that allowed it to adjust its size to fit the wearer's finger. It was mystical green, with a red heart-shaped stone crystal of fire energy. The function of these 3 accessories was the same as his and Ingrid's rings, to create a barrier and to also create fire. Christina's might end up giving a more satisfactory result since she can control the fire. A faint streak of aura suddenly flashed from Luan's ring, and a barrier of fire formed. He then tested the other 3 accessories and they all worked perfectly. Asterisk. March 11, 2010 Thursday. Luan arrived at the headquarters of Dimas Corporation. Now everyone was used to his presence there. In addition, in the few days he had been working as CEO, all the projects he invested in were going well. Some of the investments he made were already making a profit. Not only that, there were also projects that the executives wanted to accept but were rejected by Luan, eventually proving that he made the right decision because some of them had already gone downhill. A major project for the construction of a shopping mall was having many problems with the land since the land had given way and a gigantic crater was formed. The amount that was being invested in the construction was higher than expected, and the project had to be postponed to raise more money. And they had no forecast for when they would return to construction. Because of this, many materials and contracted construction companies had suffered losses. Luckily, when the land gave way, there was no fatality, but 2 men were seriously injured and another 10 left with some minor injuries. Luan was walking to the security department of the company's headquarters system with the intention of improving the security system. He learned that yesterday there were some hackers who tried to break into the system, but luckily, they were unable. Not wanting to depend on luck, Luan decided to improve their security himself. "He is so hot," a woman commented to her friend when she saw Luan go through the finance department. She was a brunette with black hair and light brown eyes, with big curves and flesh in the right places. In the finance department, she was in the top of the rank of hot women that male employees drooled over. "If he were my friend, I would easily seduce him with my beautiful curves." "Stop dreaming big. He's the CEO, a lot of sand for your truck," a short-haired blonde said with a sigh. She has seen this scene a few times when Luan had passed through the financial sector. "Relax, I can make 2, 3, or even 5 trips if need to." Tilda, with her hand resting on her chin, she spoke in a dreamy way and in a seductive voice. Luan, who ended up overhearing this conversation, pretended to be deaf and only gave a warning look so as not to be talking during work hours. "So fierce, so capable," another woman murmured boldly. "If he looked at me like that in bed, oh God." There were many women in the finance department, and many of these women heard the murmur of the woman who had said that. Many of them had the same thought. Luan's gaze made their bodies shudder in ecstasy. Of course, they loved their jobs, so they didn't dare to neglect Luan's warning look and went back to work. "CEO Luan, please come in, feel free." CIO Rodrigo, Chief Information Officer, saw Luan arrive, and left his room and had gone to receive him personally. "I want to take a look at the security system," Luan said bluntly. "I'm going to use your computer a little." Yes, feel free," CIO Rodrigo said, respectfully. "I know you must be concerned due to the hacker attack we suffered last night, but rest assured, we have already improved the security system. We also hired a new employee who just graduated in software engineering and information security at Stanford University." "Oh." Luan looked at the 20-something girl who wore glasses and had her brown hair tied in a bun, wearing a suit and dress pants. She was beautiful and elegant. She didn't have a voluptuous body, but she was charming. "CEO Luan, I am Isadora Vasconcelos. It is an honor to meet you." Isadora went to him and held out her hand, greeting him. "Nice to meet you." Luan shook her hand. Suddenly he frowned slightly. He had the slight impression of meeting her in his previous life, and after thinking for a while, he remembered. Chapter 78. Virus's Golden Fox. Isadora Vasconcelos, computer genius. In Luan's previous life, she had worked for the Ramos family. Unexpectedly, this time she ended up here. This was a pleasant surprise, since thanks to it, CR Corporation had grown a lot because of it, especially with the strong adaptation she had after the Third Awakening. "Did I do something wrong?" Seeing Luan's expression, Isadora Vasconcelos began to worry. She didn't see a lustful look, so she supposed she did something that displeased him. "You did nothing wrong." Luan returned to normal and said, "Don't mind this. I just thought of something, and it distracted me a little." Despite finding it strange, Isadora Vasconcelos said nothing. She just smiled awkwardly and walked away a little. Reeing. Asterisk. The company's supercomputer panel blinked. CIO Rodrigo, the hackers appeared again. Someone shouted. "Quick, don't let them do what they want. Increase the defense and try to find out their real IP," CIO Rodrigo commanded. "Damn it. Luan Dimas shopping was hacked so fast." Another shouted. "I will help," Isadora Vasconcelos said as she went to her desk computer and started typing on the keyboard quickly and accurately. In a short time, she managed to recover the system from Luan Dimas shopping and expel the invaders. She even discovered the true IP of the hackers and launched a virus that made their computers overload and erase themselves. Very good, Luan thought, seeing this. By today's standards, she was well above average. It was not for nothing that Luan had remembered her. Luan saw Isadora Vasconcelos working at an incredible speed. She was expelling all hackers from headquarters networks and company branches and still sending the same virus, making these hackers' computers overload. However, Luan saw that Isadora Vasconcelos' means were primitive. Even though she was so good, after half an hour, she still couldn't find out who was behind these hackers. Of course, it wouldn't be easy for anyone to find out, but at least she was able to do more than the other employees and even managed to launch a virus while defending. Luan sat at a vacant table and turned on the computer. Everyone else was busy and didn't notice what he was doing. Well, almost everyone did not see it. Isadora Vasconcelos was trying to impress Luan and show off her skills, so she looked in his direction often. When she saw his action of turning on the computer and sitting down, she found it strange but did not comment and continued to defend against and counter the hackers. Accessing his cloud network, Luan searched for something he had created in case of emergencies. It was a virus he named Fox. The only function of this virus was to steal all the victims' information and release it to the public. It could end up being classified information or even the most casual, with conversations inside applications. All the information would be available for people to see. Moreover, that information once released was not easily erased. And even on television channels, more serious cases such as information on the victims' corruptions may suddenly appear. This virus, created by Luan, had almost no defense against it. It appeared as an icon of a golden fox, and when someone clicked on it, the virus came into action. Luan left, above all, an open way for these hackers to access the company's headquarters network and made the virus icon in some places pretend to be important company information. Isadora Vasconcelos saw it all. She was on the company's headquarters network and saw when this icon appeared. Of course, she didn't click. However, she was curious to know what exactly it was. The only thing she was sure of was that CEO Luan Dimas had placed it there. Luan's virus was not simply limited to that. The effects that the virus also tracked down the people behind it all and soon ferreted them out. Asterisk. Suddenly, there were curses from all Hamibo Corporation companies. It was very sudden that an apparently harmless icon had shown up with the appearance of a golden fox, in several different places, even appearing to be a new update for WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter, among other famous apps, and even folders changed to that icon, and when they clicked, a fierce golden fox looked at them and the fox's tail multiplied and stole all the victims' data. Soon the private information of Hamibo Corporation started to be leaked on all social networks like wildfire. Some of it may have been mostly harmless, but there were even conversations of pedophilia, corruption, conversations of betrayals and trafficking of criminals, who worked in the company in disguise, among many other things. Even when they turn off the cell phones connected to the company's internet, or even turned off the Hamibo Corporation system, it was too late. The virus had already taken action and done the damage. The appearance of the golden fox stealing the data was merely illustrative. But terrifying enough, it made them have nightmares for years to come. Oh my God, oh my God. I will be arrested. My wife is going to leave me. Ah, who did this? Why did they do it? Wait, I'm not a pedophobe. This is false information. Stop. I swear, I didn't kill my husband. He ate rat poison by mistake. It's not my fault. While employees at Hamibo Corporation were in chaos, so were the executives. All Hamibo Corporation networks were down, and they were unable to do anything about it. And many of the executives were from politics and using Hamibo Corporation to launder money. Everything was now public. Of course, the police, having this evidence for crimes of money laundering, rapes, pedophilia, and aggression against women among other crimes, had to act quickly. They couldn't let these people get away. After all, this had already been made public. If they neglected it, it would not bode well for them. Hamibo Corporation consisted of more than 20,000 employees, and more than 100 of them committed crimes that would get them at least 5 years in jail. Because of what was happening, investors at Hamibo Corporation started selling their shares. Hamibo Corporation's assets fell so much that they barely had 10 billion assets, taking into account that only minutes had passed and before they had almost 40 billion in assets. This was the biggest tragedy they had ever faced, much worse than buying Petrobras shares. Samuel Hamibo, Wagner Hamibo's father, had many obscure things revealed to the public, some of which were about his betrayals by going out with many women even from the company's shareholders and investors. Only one thing was not revealed, the fact that he had had sex with Monica Anjos, Ingrid's sister. Luan thought it was too early to harm Wagner Hamibo. Of course, this did not mean that Wagner wasn't going to be punished. Many of the cases he spread to his friends of having forced some famous girls to have sex with him in exchange for favors had gone public. Armanda Hamibo Silva, the mother of Wagner Hamibo and wife of Samuel Hamibo, collapsed. She had never cheated on her husband and was always faithful and thought he had also always been faithful to her. But when all of these things went public, it all started to make sense in her mind. Her eyes went red and she dropped to her knees on the floor with tears streaming down her eyes. In her room, she shouted with hatred, "Samuel, you'll pay for this. It won't end simply like this, it won't." Chapter 79. Accident at the hospital. Luan finished releasing the virus and then used a firewall he created to use the company's system protection. Not only did it defend the system, but it also stole the information of anyone trying to break into it. From start to finish, Luan's expression hadn't changed. He continued to treat everything with great indifference while making Hamibo Corporation go downhill. However, Isadora Vasconcelos, who paid attention to all Luan's actions and was able to observe closely what he did, had begun to admire him, especially after seeing how advanced the virus created by Luan was in the defense firewall that was installed. She was amazed for a few minutes while testing the defenses of the firewall. Defense of the company's headquarters and of subsidiaries and branches has already been stabilized. The TI people celebrated loudly. They were sweating cold at first, mainly because this problem had happened when the new CEO came to visit. CEO Luan, you are incredible. Your hacking skills are also first-rate. I must admit that even I am not able to do what you did, Isadora Vasconcelos said with admiration after observing Luan using his skills to deal with Hamibo hackers and bring everything back to normal while simultaneously increasing the security of the Dimas Corporation system. CEO Luan, were you the one who did it? I see. CIO Rodrigo said full of praise, that was incredible, it is already in all the newspapers about what is happening with Hamibo Corporation. The entire IT department was stunned. It was the first time that they had seen the new CEO and had ended up discovering that he was incredible. All they felt was enthusiasm and adrenaline. Now, they who didn't usually exercise, felt like running a marathon to spend the adrenaline rush. They were feeling. I guess this goes without saying, Luan warned, nothing that happened here can be leaked. You don't have to say that I did it, and you shouldn't even inform me about what happened here. Do we understand? Yes. They were all professionals and understood a lot, being smart people. Although they could leak information for the right price, that would only be instant money, and the risk of getting caught, especially after seeing Luan's skills. That was satisfying and at the same time, scary. Asterisk. Luan returned to his office, and Ingrid knocked on the door before entering. Luan, I'm coming in. Luan, the former shareholders of Hamibo Corporation have contacted us. They are looking to buy shares in Dimas Corporation, or even with project proposals to do with Dimas Corporation. Ingrid put some papers on the table as she spoke. Oh, they acted fast. They didn't even wait for one day to pass, Luan said nonchalantly. Don't give an answer yet. For now, they are just afraid and want to find a place to support themselves, but they will not be willing to invest a lot. Let's wait a little longer. Yes. Ingrid nodded. She asked, Luan, what is going on with Hamibo Corporation? It's because of you. Yes. Exactly. They tried to hack our companies. It is very likely that information will leak. However, they brought it on themselves. Luan laughed coldly. Hamibo family wanted to damage my family's business. Well, I just wanted to return the favor. Asterisk. Bay Azul Hospital. VIP room, room 13. Thank you very much, Carol, you are an angel. Leon Becker took the young girl's hand in his two hands and looked at her, full of affection and injury. Carol had light brown hair and green eyes. Her breasts were large. She wore white clothes, and she had a pure and innocent smile when she said, You don't have to thank me. I did it willingly. She blushed and put both hands in front of her face. When I saw you at the accident, and I ended up saving you, I fell in love at first sight. Ha ha ha. I can't blame you for that. Leon Becker laughed out loud with his inflated ego. He liked what he heard from the young girl, who was very beautiful. Many women fall in love with me at first sight. But I must say, I'm only interested in you right now. Hya. Carol was pulled by him. Falling on top of Leon Becker's broad chest, she pretended to be shy and not daring enough to look at him. Leon Becker liked her reaction very much and he put his hand on her chin and gave her a possessive kiss, wanting to suck out the girl's soul. After this, lustful and compromising sounds echoed in the hospital's VIP room. Prack. Asterisk. Ah. My dick. Bitch. Carol ended up sitting in the wrong way and Leon Becker's penis broke. He groaned in pain, and punched Carol in the stomach, making her go to the floor. How? Asterisk. Arg. Damn it. Did I kill her? Leon Becker winced at the thought that he might have killed the young woman. Although he hated her very much now for breaking his penis, Leon Becker did not want to go back to jail. Cough. Cough. Asterisk. Carol vomited blood and looked at Leon Becker, surprised, scared, and resentful. She was not to blame. He had moved, and it happened. Luckily, that bitch didn't die. Erg. Damn it, it happened again. It wasn't the first time his penis. broke, which was actually a penile fracture. A penile fracture is what occurs during sexual intercourse through a sudden impact against the partner's body, which can cause the penis to bend. This impact would break through the white tunic and cause the blood to leak suddenly. Leon Becker held his penis with resentment, and seeing the blood drain, it almost made him boil with rage. This was very serious, and the fact that it could cause penile fracture, or penile trauma, was an extremely important issue for any man. This was because if it occurred, it could turn into more serious problems such as Peyronie's disease. Last time, he had been cured thanks to the advanced medical treatment of his family's island, however, it would be difficult to deal with here. If I tell my dad about it, he won't let me go back, and he might end me for good. The more he thought about it, the more angry he became. He had intended to have some fun with this bitch, however, now all he wanted most was her death. Carol was no fool. Although he was hurt, she still managed to get up while spitting blood. She, with great difficulty, took her clothes and saw that Leon Becker could not move properly, and got dressed and limped out of the room. Bitch, don't even think about leaving. Leon Becker screamed and rang the call for help. Carol ignored what he said and left. Staying there after that happened was suicide. She saw that if he could, he would kill her, but he was not necessarily willing to do it with his own hands. Now she needed to find someone powerful, looking for protection. Luan. I need to ask him for help. Carol Helena murmured in her mind, before passing out outside the VIP room. Fast. Someone passed out and is bleeding. A woman who was passing by while going to visit her father, who was in the VIP room next to Leon Becker's room, saw Carol pass out. Soon, nurses appeared and rescued Carol. Seeing that Carol's clothes were expensive brands and she seemed to be rich, they didn't dare to be slow. They took her to a vacant VIP room and searched for a document that could prove her identity. On a card in her clutch bag, they discovered that she was Carol Helena, daughter of the owner of Helena Real Estate. Although it was not a very large company, it was rich enough to pay for the treatment. Call the doctor, and call her family, the head nurse ordered one of the other nurses. Yes. The nurse left and went to get the doctor and call Carol Helena's family. What happened to this young woman? How did she get hurt and get here? The head nurse looked at Carol doubtfully. Carol was still unconscious. She had used all her strength to get out of Leon Becker's room. 2 hours later, Carol had already received medical attention and a couple came. Daughter. Seeing the state of their daughter, it made the woman cry. She loved her daughter very much, and it was distressing to see her daughter lying on a hospital bed. Carol had just woken up. She looked at her father and mother and cried, Mother, Father. Tell me, daughter, what happened? How did you get hurt? Or should I say, who hurt you? In the doctor's diagnosis, he discovered that she received a very strong punch to her belly. However, the child she was expecting would not be able to survive. No, Dad, the person who did this, she said in a weak voice, it is not someone you can deal with. I need Luan. Yes, Father. Call Luan. He loves me. If I ask for his help, he will help me, I know that. Silly child, I heard that he is dating someone else now. Do you think he will help you? Her father sighed. He ran for so long trying to win you over, but you always rejected him. I told you 1,000 times, 1 hour he would find someone else, but you didn't want to hear me. No, Dad, you're wrong. He's doing this to get my attention. He still loves me. What he's done is proof of that. Carol refuses to believe her father's words. She still remembered how much Luan loved her, and always did everything for her, so there was no way he could have forgotten her. This must just be a plan to win her over. Yes, she was right about that. She had to be. Chapter 80. True Reason. Daughter. Who was the child's father? Raquel Helena. Carol Helena's mother asked, trying to be as delicate as possible. Child. What child? Carol answered with a question, in total confusion. What do you mean by, what child? Of course, we're talking about your child. Raquel looked a little irritated when she spoke. She knew that her daughter had just had a hard time, but to know that her 18-year-old daughter, who wasn't even dating, ended up getting pregnant was a shock to her. At that moment, Carol's hands and feet were cold. An expression of horror appeared on her face, but when she remembered that she lost her son, an indifferent expression, as if it was nothing much, appeared on her face. Oh, it may be from Daniel, or from Raphael, but it's certainly not Ismail's, she murmured. Whatever, the important thing is that nobody knows about it. Her father also treated this with indifference. He just hoped that it would not tarnish his daughter's reputation. If what you said is true, It is good that Luan Dimas doesn't know about it. Of course, he can't know, Carol said. I've been trying to give him a pure image, and if he finds out that I got pregnant and lost my son, what do you think he will think of me? But, I don't believe he will find out, and even if he does, like the time he found out that I had sex with Miguel, he will trust me if I say otherwise. Daughter. Her mother sighed. Not because her daughter had random sex, but because she was caught. Raquel thought it was important to have experience in sex if one wanted to arrest the right man, since sex was the basis that lead men to arrest themselves. But daughter, tell me the truth, why did you reject Luan? Erden Helena asked. He never found out the answer, and that was hard for him to swallow since Maradimas' fortune was too fat to be ignored. Sigh. Now that you two know that I'm not as holy as I seem to be, Carol said that but was interrupted. Daughter, you never deceived me. Maybe you fooled your gullible father, but I know that the time that you were locked in your room saying that you were going to play video games with your 18-year-old cousin Brian when you were 14, you two had sex, yes. Raquel always pretended to be blind at this point. She purposely made a condom appear in her daughter's room, or left a condom accessible since she didn't want her daughter to get pregnant early. Okay. I'm genuinely surprised right now, but that's not the point here. Carol had only a small change in her expression, but she returned her expression back to indifference as she continued saying, as if it were something normal, it turns out that after I had sex with a teacher of mine to improve my grades, I was caught in the act by 2 students. Well, I believe I don't even need to tell you what happened next, yeah. Exactly. The 2 men threatened me and I had to have sex with both of them at the same time, and luckily for me, and bad luck at the same time, one of them had a very thick and large penis. It left me very wide, and it didn't return to normal after that, and worse, I had to have sex with them to be silent. She continued, so, well, his offer was good, but I couldn't say yes to Luan at the time because I was too wide. It was impossible to say that I was a virgin, and also if I accepted, it was possible that these guys would tell Luan since it seemed that they were very envious of Luan's wealth. Well, after so long having sex with these 2, I did it. Remember the 2 boys who fell off the school balcony? I was the one who made the bars go limp and made them fall and die. Daughter, how could you be so careless? Her mother sighed in disappointment when she heard this. Never let someone else have something like this to threaten you. It's always good to make sure you don't get caught. Luckily you managed to get rid of them. Yes, Mom, I understand my mistake of being caught. I will never let that same mistake happen again. Carol sighed and said, moving on. I needed to do something about my pussy being so wide from having sex with those 2 guys, so I started to save money to do a hymen reconstruction. And I have almost the right amount of money for that. I see, that makes sense. There is still time to have a surgery like this. Raquel said, daughter, you should have said that to me. I would have helped to pay for the surgery. Wait, Erden asked, agitated while looking at Raquel. Did you betray me when we were together? Stop pretending to be a victim. I know you betray me too. It's nothing short of fair. Besides, unlike you who had those sluts just for sex, I did it to help the company grow. After all, how do you believe I managed to convince some of the most important customers to buy those luxury homes? Raquel asked scornfully. Okay, Mom, Dad, you can air your dirty laundry later. Now we need to take care of my business. Carol already knew about their infidelity, so she was not surprised by their conversation, and she no longer even cared anymore. This felt no different from hearing a story of infidelity told to her from a stranger. I need Luan's help. I have offended someone who I couldn't afford to offend. Daughter, tell me, who did you offend? Raquel returned her attention to her daughter. I don't know him well. He is a foreigner, but I know his name is Leon Becker, said Carol, biting her nail. Remembering the way she was treated by him afterward just because he ended up with his broken penis, she got angry but afraid at the same time. That punch of his came with a lot of force. My God. Her mother took several steps back, shaken. Carol's father was also silent. What's it? Carol was confused. Raquel explained, looking like she had aged a few years. Leon Becker is Luan's father. Well, I suppose I have to explain some things. Me and your mother, Luan, and Mara Dimas, we were best friends, and I made Mara lose her virginity to Leon Becker because your father loved Mara, or rather, he loved her wealth. Damn. What the fuck did I do? Carol collapsed. Did the only hope she had turn out to be the son of the man she had offended? How could things have turned out to be like this? Why did she have to be so unlucky? Don't worry. There is still hope, daughter. Raquel started to come up with a plan. Meanwhile, all places related to Hamibo Corporation were in chaos. Anger, profanity, screaming, and cries echoed everywhere. Everyone panicked and, over time, the panic turned to despair as more and more things appeared on social media, even on television. The golden fox icon was haunting them, able to create nightmares. They were sure of one thing. They were going to have nightmares about a golden fox tonight if they were able to sleep at all. Hamibo Corporation employees, executives, and investors were silent. They were terrified and powerless to face the virus. Their social and business networks were in shambles and the losses incurred were immeasurable. At that very moment, they realized the true meaning of despair. The virus that Luan created was so perfect, it left no clue where it came from. It was as if it had appeared out of nowhere, leaving no trace behind. And when it was close to 11 a.m., Luan programmed the effect of the virus to disappear. However, the damage was already done. Hamibo Corporation had already embarked on a path of almost no return. However, all was not entirely lost. Armanda Hamibo Silva had already started to act fast. She called her best lawyer and started preparing for the divorce with proof of the betrayal she suffered, and she was going to take everything, even her husband's last coin. No, Armanda, how can you do this to me? Samuel Hamibo was weeping desperately while pleading in a deplorable way, clinging to Armanda's leg. Armanda kicked him in the mouth and said coldly, "You scum, don't touch me. You are no longer my husband, and you will no longer use me and betray me with those bitches. From now on, I will transform your life into a true hell." She ordered before Samuel Hamibo could do anything. "Security guards, get him out of this house. He doesn't belong in this house anymore." No. Samuel Hamibo was dragged outside the house. Chapter 81. Lack of luck. Midday. Seafood restaurant. "Luan, do you already know who you want to recruit?" Eating Parmigiana filet mignon, Elias asked as soon as he finished chewing. "Yes, some of them." Luan handed him a folder containing some people's files. In the files there was detailed information on 20 people, be it financial or even personal. The files in the folder contained privileged information that only Luan knew. This was because it was information that he remembered from his previous life. Besides, he also researched more about them and put current information. Elias put the food down and started reading the files. After finishing reading, he said confusedly, "Although 3 or 4 look promising, the others don't look like anything special. Why did you choose them?" "Different reasons, but the main thing is their loyalty," Luan said without explaining. "Okay. I believe your judgment." Elias realized that Luan knew more. However, Luan did not want to speak, so he did not force him. "I will try to recruit them as soon as possible. Make sure it's done. For now, we will only recruit these 20, Luan said. "I want loyal people. We don't need to be in such a hurry now. 20 is enough for the time being. Later we can find new people. Besides, there are some people that I am watching but I still don't know if I can trust." "I understand. So, I'm going now." Elias stood up and held out his right hand to shake Luan's hand. "Okay. Call me if you need anything." Luan said goodbye to him. "Yes, I will." Nodding to Ingrid, who had been sitting next to Luan while quietly eating her meal, Elias said, "Sister-in-law, have a good day." He then turned and left the restaurant's private room. "You too." Ingrid smiled as she watched him leave. Luan turned and looked at Ingrid after Elias left. "Still hungry?" "A little," she said as she wiped her mouth with her napkin. "Then we'll continue eating." Luan sat down again and helped himself to a glass of wine. Despite needing to work afterward, this would not be able to affect his psychological and judgment as he could easily get rid of the effects of alcohol. "Do you want some?" Luan offered. "No, thank you." Ingrid lifted the glass of strawberry juice and rejected the offer. "Okay." Luan did not insist and drank the wine alone while eating. Ingrid, who was eating, took a piece of fish and said, "Luan, try this, it's delicious." "Yes." Luan nodded and was fed some of the fish by her. Chewing, he swallowed and said as he looked at her, "Delicious." Ingrid put her hand on her chin and looked at him, licking her lips in a natural way, which was very seductive, and asked in her soft and charming voice, "Why do I think you're not talking about the fish?" Luan looked at her without blinking, but his pupils widened a little when he heard that question. His silence made Ingrid uneasy, and his red eyes, staring at her, made her body warm up. Luan said nothing at all. He just stared at her, but it made her heart beat faster. Luan's voice came moments later, sounding like the devil's whisper, "You look delicious too." "Me. Damn it." Ingrid cursed in her mind. Although she had already expected it, when it came, it hit her right in the heart. She wanted to provoke him but ended up being provoked. Asterisk. That playboy Luan Dimas has changed. Since he became a CEO, he hasn't caused a problem in the company until now. Anyway, he is very handsome. Now that he has become a better person, he doesn't look so bad. In fact, he looks much better than other men. I do not doubt that he will become the most coveted bachelor in Brazil. Wait, I saw him wear a wedding ring. Is it that he's dating? There are rumors that his private secretary is his girlfriend. In fact, the ring she wears is the same as his. I had a chance to see it up close. So it's true, the two are dating. Many women regretted hearing this, but they did not give up. After all, the girlfriend was not yet his wife. Author note. Dating alliance in Brazil. This is usually the first jewel the couple exchanges for one purpose: to demonstrate love and fidelity through a material link. They represent a spontaneous and legitimate way for a couple to confirm their commitment. Luan and Ingrid were returning from lunch when they heard what was said. Ingrid, although she felt shy, in her heart she was shining. She was now seen as Luan's girlfriend. She also felt that the perverted looks she used to receive had now disappeared like smoke. It was hard for a man to be brave enough to have ideas with CEO Luan's girlfriend, the girlfriend of the heir to the Dimas Corporation. Ingrid, come with me to my office, there is something I need to talk to you about, Luan told her as they walked through the company. Okay. Ingrid readily agreed. The moment Luan and Ingrid entered Luan's office, Luan placed Ingrid against the wall. Gulp. Asterisk. Ingrid swallowed her saliva dry, and showed her tongue, and licked her lips nervously. Her cheeks went red. Luan approached her inch by inch until he was only 2 inches away from her mouth, and then he kissed her. After their lips parted, Luan smiled with satisfaction and said, okay, you can leave now. Ingrid looked at him, dumbfounded. She turned and opened the office door. She was about to leave when she said, oh, as if she just remembered something. She said to Luan, you know what's going on tonight, don't you? Yes, Banco Bradesco's birthday, Luan nodded. On the anniversary of large companies being established like Bradesco, many figures from large companies come together. It was also a good opportunity to be able to associate with some of them and get some contracts and investments. In fact, Bradesco's birthday was yesterday, March 10th, however, tonight on the 11th a party will be held only for the elites, Ingrid said. It will be in São Paulo, Luan said, call my mom and see if she has already prepared the private jet so we can go there later. Ingrid said before leaving, yes, I will do that right now. Asterisk. 6:23 p.m., Florianopolis, S. Oh Jose. Why Maria, why did you do this to me? A drunk man murmured as he staggered through the streets of San Jose. He fell to the floor with the sound of thud. And was having trouble getting up. Sitting on the road, the man thought about everything that had happened to him recently. Recently, he had earned a lot of tip money at his place of employment. He intended to take his wife out for a romantic dinner, and then, along with their daughter, go on a vacation trip with the rest of the money. However, he left the money with his wife, but then she ran away with the money, leaving him and his daughter behind. Moments later, he discovered that she had a lover and already wanted to part with her husband. Now with the money, although it wasn't that much, it was enough for her to get away with her lover. He also lost all the savings they were making to buy a house and get out of rent. Everything went downhill after that. He loved his wife so much, so he ended up leaving his daughter with his mother and went out to drink. A woman passed by the man, but suddenly stopped walking. She turned and said, Sebastian. The woman had blonde hair and wore cheap clothes, but as simple as her clothes were, this woman in her 30s was very charming and elegant. Chapter 82. Bonbon the airplane. Mom, this is for you. Luan gave his mother the pair of earrings after he got home. Thank you, Luan. They're beautiful. Mara was delighted with the pair of earrings, and she was now already sensitive to chi and soon noticed that they were not a simple pair of earrings. Did you notice? Yes. Luan said, these earrings were made by me. They have a high defense mechanism and a weak attack one as well. Well, the attack is just some flames, but the important thing is the defense. I understand. Thank you, Luan. Mara hugged him gratefully. Luan, what about me? Katharina pouted when she saw that her mother received such a good gift and she hadn't. I have one for you and Christina too. Luan handed them a small box. Opening it, Christina exclaimed, so beautiful. I love it, Luan. Katharina hugged Luan and walked away, and without reservation placed the ring on the index finger of her left hand. Christina also wore hers on her left hand on her index finger. Oh, before she could say it wouldn't fit, the ring formation was activated and adjusted to her finger. Amazing. It's not a big deal. When I have more resources, I will do something better for you, Luan said with a smile. Thank you, big brother. Christina hugged him very tightly. She felt blessed. Since she had met Luan, it has been the happiest days of her life. On top of Luan and Ingrid, who were both wonderful, she had received a loving mother, a sister who also loved her, and Luan's male friend. Elias, although he seemed strange, he seemed to be someone trustworthy. Also, Olivia was now her godmother, and although Christina has not seen her more than twice, she was a kind woman who had treated her well. Okay, go up now and get ready. Today we're all going out, Luan patted her on the head and said. Yes. Christina nodded and went up the stairs. I'm also going to get ready. Ingrid gave Luan a peck before going up the stairs. Asterisk. Wait, don't get on the jet. As soon as Mara and the three girls were about to enter the jet, they were prevented from entering when Luan spoke. What happened, Luan? All four looked in his direction. There's a bomb on the jet. Luan's hearing detected the sound of tick-tock. Although nearly silent, he was able to hear it. It was very low, even Ingrid with her superhuman hearing did not hear. Bomb. The pilot and co-pilot of the plane shuddered from head to toe. They were amazed. Although they did not know how Luan discovered this, they readily believed it. Relax, Luan said and made them pass out and replace the last few seconds of their memories where he had said there was a bomb. It was not a good thing to alarm those who were plotting against them. Luan, watch out. Seeing Luan enter the jet, Mara spoke out in worry. It's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen. Luan gave his word and entered. 2 minutes later, Luan returned with the bomb diffused in his hand. My God, there was really a bomb. Mara covered her mouth. Yes, it was close to the turbine. Although it is not strong enough to blow up the jet completely, it would be strong enough to destroy the turbines and make the plane crash. A cold expression was stamped on Luan's face. Do you want to see something magical? An unkind smile appeared on Luan's face when he asked that question. Before they could answer, Luan closed his eyes, and with his index finger, he wrote in the air with old letters, and those old letters went towards the bomb in his hand. Then, he placed the bomb on the floor and extended his 2 hands in the direction of the bomb. The white energy left his hands and started to gather more and more around the bomb. Something paranormal happened. That white energy turned into a beautiful white swan. Flapping its wings, the white swan floated in the air with the bomb at the center of its body. Go back to the person who put you here and do what you have to do, Luan opened his eyes and said while looking at the white swan. Whoosh. Asterisk. With sounds of wind and flapping wings, the white swan grunted and flew into the sky at a very fast speed, faster than an airplane. Mara and the girls had their mouths open. They'd never seen anything like this before. It was as if the white swan was alive. Luan, are you able to generate life? Katharina asked, amazed. No, it just has a degree of intelligence and it follows my commands. It is not very different from virtual intelligence. Luan said coldly. Now, that white swan is going to return to the person who placed the bomb in the jet. I put a tracking spell and a chasing spell on their present. I hope he or she likes the gift. As expected, Big Brother is incredible. Christina applauded. I knew you were going to say that. Luan patted her on the head and said, come on. I will wake the pilot and the co-pilot and we can continue. Inside the plane, I'll find out who is behind this. Asterisk. At the same time, private jet of the second largest shareholder of Dimas Corporation, Vincent Kant. Kekaki. It shouldn't take long for it to appear in the news, a thin man with black hair and dark eyes said with a hideous laugh. Stop laughing. Your laugh makes me nauseous, another man, Vincent Kant said, but it's true, it will be interesting to see that bitch and her bastard children die in an explosion. With all the money we have to wash, it will be a good plan for it to buy the company's shares the moment they die, a brunette woman with small breasts said with a dismissive laugh. Yes, I just hope that we can trust Mara's brother. Vincent Kant could not trust the moment that Luan Dimas got his hands on the inheritance. If he is in fact heir to that, he will sell the shares to him. Don't worry, love, we have evidence that will make him collaborate with us, the brunette woman said with a smile. She always envied Mara, and now that she had a chance to finally get back on top, she was very happy. It was not the first time that they had tried to take the lives of Mara, Luan, and Katharina, but unfortunately they were not successful. However, this time they were confident that it would work. Mainly because it was a Russian bomb that they got from Mara's brother, Luan Dimas, who was in Russia, and God knows how he brought that bomb here, and now it was implanted in Mara Dimas's private jet. Impossible. Suddenly, they hear the cry of the pilot of the plane. The pilot of the plane saw that a foreign object was flying at high speed towards them. And when he was able to distinguish what it was, he was incredulous. How the hell can a bird fly so fast? The plane was flying at 380 kilometers per hour. It was impossible for a bird to reach them, and it wasn't just flying fast, it was faster than they were flying. Before they could do anything, the white swan reached the plane and flew side by side with it. Then the bird seemed to have seen someone and went up against the plane's side and broke through the bulletproof glass, and then they saw the white swan pierce the body of the black-haired man with dark eyes. And heard tick-tock, tick-tock, asterisk, quick, throw him off the plane. Vincent Kant shouted. Yeah, I don't wanna die, asterisk boom, asterisk. A powerful crash occurred in the sky. The private jet turned into fireworks, and it was unknown if even the black box remained. Luan, after all, had used his chi to make the bomb even more powerful, powerful enough to demolish a 30-story building. Chapter 83. Bradesco's Anniversary, Part 1. On the plane, Luan had his laptop typing very fast, changing many things as well as the airport filming cameras, especially the cameras that filmed everything he did. In addition, he concealed the reason why Vincent Kant's private jet had exploded. Yes, he saw the whole process, and he saw the moment the jet exploded. His son, he wasn't on the plane. Luan knew that after that, Aguinaldo Kant would inherit everything. After all, he was Vincent Kant's only son. Luan is incredible. Mara and the girls were watching what Luan was doing on the laptop, and Christina said this as soon as she saw the whole process of Luan destroying the plane, hiding the accident information, and erasing all the evidence. Christina did not understand the process very well, but even so, she was able to say that what Luan was doing was incredible. I'm almost done. You can play cards or something until we get to S. Oh, Paulo. Luan paused and continued to type on the laptop. Okay. Minutes later, Luan closed the laptop and murmured, there. It's all done. Luan had spent a good deal of his chi on making that white swan, so he sat on the white couch with his legs crossed, closed his eyes, and started to meditate. After a few moments it looked like rain of stars going in the direction of Luan. Mara, Ingrid, Christina, and Katharina stopped playing the card game and watched, amazed. Wow. Big Brother is really incredible. Christina exclaimed. So handsome. Ingrid murmured. She blushed with excitement at seeing her boyfriend like that. He looked more handsome than usual. It was as if those particles of energy that went to Luan were purposely doing this to make him more handsome. Even Luan found this strange. He was not supposed to attract so much energy. It was a very strange occurrence, but good at the same time. Luan would have described this as if he was getting chi from something wet. Soon around Luan it looked like a fog, as if he were being surrounded by steam. It was all very strange and mystical. Mara and the girls were still looking at it with interest. This was something they had never seen before, not even when Luan meditated on the formation that helped him to get the chi from heaven and earth. Clouds. Is this coming from the clouds? Luan came up with a plausible hypothesis. Initially, he only intended to supply his chi. However, after this happened, he was meditating the entire trip to S. Oh, Paulo. Asterisk. When they arrived at the airport, a white limo was waiting for them. A refined man in standard black driver's clothing with white gloves was the man who would be their driver. He spoke politely. Please come in. The driver opened the door for them. It was the first time for Christina and Ingrid to have left Santa Catarina. Neither of the two girls had left Florianopolis before. It was all too new for them. The appearance and constructions were different from Santa Catarina as they passed huge buildings. Some time later, they arrived at Avenue Pompeia, and the limo stopped in front of a large building with the sign in front, Espa. O Pompeia. Buffet e Eventos. The driver got out and opened the door for them. The moment they left, they were in the spotlight. Camera flashes flashed, and a small stir happened, as did some reporters come up to ask some questions, whether about the company or even about Hamibo Corporation. CEO Luan Dimas, what are your goals now that you have become CEO? And what do you intend to do to prove your worth in the company? CEO Luan Dimas, are you aware that it can ruin many people's lives if you can't manage the corporation well? President Mara Dimas, Why did you let your son take over as CEO of Dimas Corporation headquarters when he is only 18 years old? President Luan Dimas, do you have anything to say about the Hamibo Corporation incident and the information leak? President Luan Dimas, from reliable sources we heard that CEO Luan Dimas is not doing a good job. Is that true? President Luan Dimas, you know more than anyone how much the burden of being CEO of Dimas Corporation headquarters is. Did you regret placing your son as CEO? Luan stopped walking. The moment he did, the reporters felt enormous pressure and started to sweat. But Luan did not want to harm them unfairly, and he did not force them to retreat with his aura. Mara also stopped and looked at them. She said, about Hamibo Corporation, I have nothing to declare. As for my son, I believe in his potential and I believe in his judgment. That's why my son, Luan Dimas, is CEO of Dimas Corporation. Regarding the results, you are rushing since it has not been even a week since he became CEO and has already shown positive results. If you want to ask questions, at least do your research first and do your research well, and apparently your reliable sources are not that reliable. The face of the reporter who asked that question kept changing from green to red. He had lied before. He just didn't believe that an 18-year-old could manage such a big company. The worst was that after that, he felt like a mountain was pressing on him, and then, when he looked at Luan Dimas, a gigantic figure of a rotten white dragon appeared behind Luan, looking at him with big eyes. Monster! The reporter shouted as he pointed at Luan. He was so scared, he peed his pants. This was all filmed by other reporters, and they saw until the moment that the man's pants began to show the yellow spot between his legs. Then the reporter fell backward, foam coming out of his mouth, as if angry, and began to convulse. The other reporters did not see what had happened to the reporter who had passed out after convulsing on the floor and foaming at the mouth, but fear hovered in their hearts and made them swallow their saliva dry. Any more questions? Luan didn't even bother to look at the fallen reporter's body that was removed by the employees of the event location. He simply looked at the other reporters and asked his question with indifference. Perhaps because of what had happened to the man, or perhaps because of the aura that Luan released was too powerful for them to bear to stand in front of him and ask questions, the reporters did not dare to speak and were silent when they heard the question from Luan. Luan turned and said, "Come on." Mara and the three girls followed him. Only when they left did the reporters catch their breath and begin to breathe again. This is crazy. What was that just now? I felt myself inside a sea, and sinking more and more. My God, that boy is not at all normal as we thought he was. I hope he doesn't take my questions personally. I think everything is fine. Only Jeffrey misused his luck and talked too much. That's true. Meanwhile, Luan, Mara, and the three girls were received by Luis Carlos Trabuco Capi, current president of Banco Bradesco. He was a short black-haired man, wearing a black suit and blue tie. The man was almost 60 years old. It is an honor for us to have you here, Luis Carlos Trabuco Capi said as he held out his hand. Chapter 84. Bradesco's Anniversary, Part 2. It is an honor for us to have you here, Luis Carlos Trabuco Capi said as he held out his hand. It's our pleasure. Luan shook his hand. Happy to see you again, President Luis Carlos. Mara shook his hand with a friendly smile. Equally, President Luis Carlos smiled and said, looking at Ingrid, Christina, and Katharina, these three lovely girls must be your daughters and daughter-in-law, yes? That's right. Mara nodded. She looked at the three with a kind smile. Delighted to meet you, ladies, President Luis Carlos joked, making a show of obeisance as in ancient times. This made Ingrid, Christina, and Katharina feel more comfortable and even laugh a little. Equally, the three girls said, "Please, follow me." President Luis Carlos led them inside. The arrival of the Dimas family with Bradesco's CEO, Luis Carlos Trabuco Capi, drew a lot of attention. Of course, it was not only because of President Luis Carlos but also because the fact that the Dimas family was very famous. Another reason, too, was that they each drew the eyes toward them. It was difficult to find fault with their appearance. It wasn't as dramatic as you see in some movies, to the point of making others pass out from their beauty, but it was captivating enough to make their hearts beat faster. The moment Luan entered and looked at those gathered inside the hall, he noticed some people with great influence. Some he believed it was worthwhile to partner with. Others, he just wanted to invest in some projects and get other investors. Luan was different from the past, who was an ignorant young adult. No, well, the two were at the same point on the time axis, but this time around he had a history of countless years of effort and the knowledge of his past achievements and failures. Sorry, the president of Haven has arrived. I'm going over there to welcome him. CEO Luis Carlos was listening in his earpiece, and at that moment, he heard about the arrival of the president of Haven. Enjoy the party. It's all right. Both Luan and Mara did not care and said goodbye. Isn't that big brother Elias? Christina spoke as she looked in the direction of a tall, large young man. Yes, it is himself. Katharina smiled and said, next to him is his father. They didn't see Olivia. Most likely she was in the bathroom. Approaching them, Luan greeted them, good evening, Uncle Rogerio. The moment that Rogerio Levi Cardozo shook Luan's hand, he exerted a little force. And as much force as he used, he saw that Luan's expression didn't even change, and it was an expression as if nothing was happening. It was something that could not be forged so easily, especially when Rodrigo used all his strength and Luan still carried the same expression. Ha ha ha. Good evening, nephew. Rogerio stopped shaking Luan's hand and hugged him while slapping Luan on the back as he laughed out loud. He was happy with Luan's willingness to share body techniques with his family. In addition, he learned that Luan had plans to make himself available to the army, but was planning to do so with the help of his grandfather. Rogerio didn't think it was wrong for Luan to act like that, since he was CEO and needed to profit from it. After all, it must not have been easy for him to achieve something so good. If possible, he wanted to talk about the subject of the mysterious crevices, but he knew that now was not the time or the right place to have such a conversation. Uncle, this is my new little sister, Christina Dimas, and this is my girlfriend, Ingrid Anjos. Luan introduced them both. Nice to meet you both. Rogerio smiled and greeted them with a kiss on the cheek. He also greeted Mara with a kiss on the cheek. Elias, who was feeling left out, greeted them too. Didn't Aunt Olivia come? Katharina asked, looking at Elias. She is here, Elias replied. She went to the bathroom. She'll be back soon. I understand, Katharina smiled. I'm going out for a while. You guys can stay and talk. Luan left, and Ingrid followed him. Luan was approached by many people on his walk through the party hall. Some only greeted him, while others offered some proposals and investments. Ingrid wrote down all the proposals made and investors who decided to invest in the company. It was always good to get new investors and projects. But Luan never talked about the game or tried to get investors for the game. He did not intend to depend on third parties to invest in the game. He intended to be the first and only owner of the game. Everything could be done in the company itself and the investment could be done by his mother. Which was more viable, since the profit from the game would go to her. Ingrid's lips pursed in disgust when she saw someone at that party. It was Stefan, a man who once hit on her and pretended to be just being kind. His hypocrisy and narcissism made her sick. However, she saw that when Stefan looked in their direction, right after, he looked at the floor. It was as if he felt guilty and resentful at the same time. Luan did not tell her, but he made things a little difficult for the Miranda family, which was Stefan Miranda's family. Luan knew that the Miranda family was always supporting his mother, so he left differences aside and didn't make things too difficult. However, he gave a warning. If Stefan Miranda dares to do something wrong toward his family and Ingrid, things would not be so smooth. Stefan Miranda, despite being young and immature, was not a fool. After being scolded by his father, Vidal Miranda, he understood that he was entering a minefield. One misstep and his family's lives could go downhill. The initial thoughts he had of harming Ingrid had disappeared like smoke. He didn't even dare look at her for fear of them thinking he was being malicious. While walking and talking with some people, Luan also spoke to some politicians, but he did not accept any project that they proposed to him. Most, or rather, all of them who spoke to him were offering flawed projects. In addition, it was highly probable that they were using the projects for money laundering. Luan didn't want to be part of such a thing. Aguinaldo Kant was looking at Luan and his family from beginning to end with narrowed eyes and undisguised anger. Suddenly he received a message on his cell phone and left the place in a hurry. Luan paid no attention to this and went back to where his family and Elias' family were located. Luan, something tragic has happened, Rogerio Levi Cardozo said. The second largest investor in Dimas Corporation, Vincent Kant, had an accident. Oh, and how did it happen? Luan pretended to be surprised. No one knows for sure, Rogerio sighed, since only the disappearance of his private jet has been reported so far. Whether it fell or exploded, it's hard to know. I understand. Luan said no more than that. He also didn't try to pretend to pity them. Chapter 85. Going to Mato Grosso do Sul. Mom, will you want to stay for the buffet? Luan looked at her and asked. He had just received a warning on his cell phone. A new dimensional crack had opened in Brazil, in the state of Mato Grosso do Sul. It would take a little over 2 hours to fly there. If so, it would be better to go now. No, Mara said, let's go home. Well, then, let's get going, Luan said, and they said their goodbyes to Elias's family. Outside the party, with no people around, Mara asked, Luan, did something happen? Yes, a new dimensional gap has appeared. Luan sent a message to the pilot of the plane, and explained things to Mara and the girls. It is located in Mato Grosso do Sul, in a more rural region. I intend to take you there. Luan, are we going to fight monsters again? Katharina interrupted. Precisely. Why? Are you afraid? Luan provoked her. Of course not. She sharply denied. I'm just asking. For asking. Fight monsters. That's exactly what I want. Katharina acted brave, but her shaky legs gave her away. Luan, stop teasing your sister, Mara scolded him, softly. Okay. Luan laughed and said nothing more. After getting into the waiting limo, the limo drove towards the airport where their Airbus ACJ318 private jet was. I will do my best to stay strong. Christina was motivated. Luan smirked as he stroked Christina's head. Yes, you can do that. When they arrived at the airport, the pilot and co-pilot were waiting for them. Mother, Christina, and Katharina, Luan said, if it is not a very dangerous place, I want you three to be able to deal with the situation alone. Ingrid and I will only help if it is really necessary, okay? I knew you were going to say that. Mara smiled. Yes, I think that's right too. Fighting for ourselves helped a lot the last time, although that accident happened in the end. Luan, you have to promise that you won't let us be in danger. Although I hate getting hurt, I don't mind getting hurt a little, but I don't want to end up in the same state as last time, okay? Katharina was still a little traumatized from her last experience with a dimensional gap. Yes, I will not let the three of you take too many risks, Luan agreed. First of all, Luan used all of his senses and extrasensory perception to see if something like a bomb was implanted on their plane again. Being cautious never hurt anyone, especially when being so for someone important that many people might benefit from the death of them and their family. On the plane, Luan sat on the bed and said, I'm going to meditate on the way there. You girls can also do the same since I'm going to pull a lot of energy. He wanted to say that if he meditated now, a lot of energy would accumulate on the plane, and if they also meditated, it would help them. Okay, I'll do that. Ingrid wanted to experience what it felt like to meditate while flying on an airplane. Mara, Christina, and Katharina also wanted to test and see if in these 2 hours of flight they would be able to make some progress in cultivation. After hearing this, Luan began to meditate. As before, the same phenomenon happened. Fragments of lights came towards Luan like raindrops, only more brilliant. Ingrid, Christina, Mara, and Katharina sat on the big double bed and also closed their eyes and meditated. The result could not be said to be excellent, but it was satisfactory. Some of the energies that didn't enter Luan's body in time went to them and helped to improve their cultivation base by a little. Gradually, they steadily grew stronger. Luan, on the other hand, was increasingly certain that his origin was related to clouds, or perhaps to water. In any case, he needed to meditate near a river or lake, even by the pool of his house, to see if it would have similar results. The fetters of energy accumulated in Luan's body, and little by little, he got stronger. Bang! Asterisk. Luan murmured. Refining chi, level 5. This surprised even him. It was not easy to level up in cultivation, especially when he needed pure energy to fill his pseudo-core. Now he was 30 times stronger than an ordinary man just with his chi. This was an absurd amount since along with his strong physique, it would be equivalent to 70 times. It had only been an hour since he started meditating, so he didn't stop and continued. Since it was a good opportunity, he also realized that his mother and the girls were benefiting from it. Close to arriving in Mato Grosso do Sul, Luan stopped meditating. I had a head start, Maria smiled as she said. I almost surpassed my limits, said Christina. Me too, almost. That's nice, Luan said. The next time you meditate, I'm sure you will be able to make progress. Anyway, we are close to getting there, and we are going straight to where the dimensional gap is located. Yes. They nodded. After the plane landed, Luan went to the pilot and co-pilot and said, I paid for your stay in a 5-star hotel. You two just need to go and say your names. As for when we will be back, wait for my call. Yes, sir. Both were motivated. Working for the Dimas family had always been satisfying. After doing that, Luan went out with his mother and the girls to take a taxi. The place where the dimensional crack was located was near Moro Luis Barada, Campo Grande Cemetery. Luan's reason for knowing about this dimensional crack was very fortunate, since a woman who was in a live chat group had ended up filming the dimensional crack in the distance. However, it seemed that no one noticed anything strange, since it was a bit blurry, and you couldn't see very well. However, the program that Luan had developed was able to identify the singularities and be 50% sure that it was a dimensional crack. Between pros and cons, it was worth coming and making sure if it existed or not. "You can stop here, thanks. You can keep the change," Luan said, paying the taxi driver. After doing this, Luan said, "Come on, we are close to where the dimensional crack was seen." Yes. The rest followed Luan closely. After 20 minutes of walking, they saw. It was actually close to a mountain trail and also close to the road surface. "Luan, do you think some people were caught up in it the same way we did that other time?" Ingrid looked at him and asked. "Possibly. It is not very isolated, and someone can come by and end up entering without pretension," Luan replied. After testing the power level of the dimensional crack, Luan was able to accurately analyze that it was a dimensional crack with a power of at most 45 times the strength of an ordinary man. "It's safe for all of us to get in. Let's go," Luan said, and was the first to enter. Chapter 86. Imps. From the moment they entered the dimensional gap until then, they did not notice anything different, despite it being a dark and cold place. However, some things began to be noticed by them, such as footprints and other marks of struggle. There were even indications of possible bodies being dragged across the floor. "Luan, I don't think so. I'm sure there were humans here, however, something must have happened. In addition, animals, perhaps dogs, must have entered, since there are animal tracks." Mara analyzed the situation. "I agree, and they must be the reason." As soon as Luan said this, many small and ugly beings appeared. All of them were at most 1 meter long, with short legs and arms and a pair of horns and large, pointed ears. Some of these ugly beings had a pair of wings on their backs and flew with a hideous smile on their faces. The eyes of these living beings were black without the slightest sign of light. It was as if they were made of glass, and not something like that of a living being. It was ridiculous how scary these little creatures could be. Their colors varied between 3 shades: green, red, and blue. Katharina and Christina trembled with fear when they saw these creatures and were frightened by the diabolical appearance of them. "They are imps," Luan murmured loudly enough for them to hear. Author note: an imp is a mythological being similar to a fairy or demon, often described in folklore and superstition. The word derives from the term imp, used to denote a grafted tree. And to think that these mythological creatures really exist. Mara, on the other hand, was impressed. Yes, many of the things that appeared in mythology were, in fact, real. Some were recorded in historical books, which talked about things like these imps. However, not everything mythological is real. Anyway, they are smart, and not friendly to humans. They are carnivores and are looking at us as prey. Luan said this so they wouldn't let their guard down. "Their strength is not that high," Luan said. "Mother, Christina, and Katharina, try to fight them. If you can't, Ingrid and I will help." Okay. They felt motivated, although still afraid, since this imp was very ugly and scary. Mara was the one who was most relaxed with this situation compared to Christina and Katharina. She was also the first to move. In her eyes, the imps looked digitized. She moved toward the nearest imp with long strides, and the soles of her feet were filled with her monstrous strength. Each of her steps left residual marks on impact. The thrust of her intense speed was like that of a herd of 10 horses. Goo-oh-oh. The imp that was about to be attacked let out a strange cry, moving fast across the floor since it had no wings, and both imps' fists flung forward while strange red energy surrounded its fists as it attacked towards Mara. At that moment there was only one thought in Mara's mind: to defeat this imp. The strength of this imp was around the strength of 8 ordinary people, and when the imp's fist hit Mara's fist, it looked like Mara's hand was that of an adult man and the imp's a child. The imp was forced back, and Mara's brute strength broke the bones of the imp's hand, and before he flew off, she took another step forward, and with her other hand, she set her foot on the ground and threw a punch at the imp's chest. Bang! Asterisk. The imp's body went flying, and he hit the other imps who tried to hold him. When they saw that more than 3 imps had gone to attack Mara, Katharina and Christina went to help. "Watch out. Some of them can attack from a distance." Luan gave a warning just as a fireball flew towards Mara. Mara acted quickly and dodged. She pulled away and kicked off the ground, pushing forward and throwing a punch to the head of an imp that was almost reaching her. Bang! Asterisk. The punch was very strong, making the imp's body hit the ground and bounce like a soccer ball. Mara wasted no time and kicked the imp while he was down, making him fly a distance and hit his head against the head of an imp with wings that was flying. Bang! Asterisk. Boom! Boom! Asterisk. The two imps fell heavily to the ground and were barely able to get up. Christina surrounded her hands with fire and sent a shower of punches in the direction of an imp flying at about her height. Pow! 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 Asterisk. The explosive sounds of her fists of fire echoed and the imp was launched from a distance, falling to the ground and creating a small crater with his body. Katharina was the weakest of them, but that didn't mean she couldn't fight. She was a little more clumsy, being hit by an imp punch and being forced to back up. The imp laughed at Katharina, as he celebrated for making her step back. This ignited a flame of anger in the heart of Katharina, who kicked the floor and reached the imp who laughed at her. Not even she knows how she was able to do this. Katharina, after kicking the ground, stayed in the air, and turning with her right foot, she kicked the imp's head and the body of another imp that was nearby. It was a combo which launched the two imps backward with great force. The power of her kick with the speed and the strength of 9 ordinary men was powerful enough to tear both imps in half. Mara was about to be attacked by a different imp. This one seemed to be bigger and more powerful. It was an imp of red color, of which there were only a few present. A red imp's maximum strength was up to 10 times more powerful than an ordinary man, which was only slightly weaker than Mara. Mara retaliates with a punch, using all her strength. Both of Mara's fists met the fists of the red imp. Punching each other, their fists collided fiercely. Bang! Asterisk. With deafening sounds and bright red lights that came from the fist of the red imp due to the explosion, the wind waves were like a gale. A hurricane spread in all 4 directions, instantly picking up many of the imps, who were unable to escape. Luckily, Christina and Katharina had just gotten rid of the imps that were attacking them and were able to dodge the effects of the hurricane. The 2 girls were amazed. Inexplicably, their mother had become very powerful. They could clearly see the blood dripping from the corner of the red imp's mouth. Although Mara was a little breathless, she was standing firmly like a mountain, with her eyes as sharp as a sword. Unlike the red imp, which was spitting blood, looking at Mara in disbelief. The red imp looked over and grabbed a green imp with his hand and bit the green imp's head off. He chewed, and he started to recover. All his tiredness and internal injury were healed in moments. Goo oh oh. The red imp screamed and attacked Mara again. Monster! Mara shouted. Of course, the red imp didn't understand what she said, and even if she did, he wouldn't have been offended. Chapter 87. Scanning a sword. The red imp picked up the green imp of whose head he was chewing, pointed it in the direction of Mara and threw the green imp toward her and shouted. Hee hee. My mother's a whore. No, your mother is the whore. Luan almost took a step forward and attacked the red imp that had just cursed his mother as a whore. Luan, can you understand what they are saying? Ingrid looked at him in surprise. It was nothing more than eloquent screaming, not unlike dog barking. Yes, he said, I'm going to kill you, you bitch. As soon as he threw the green imp's body at my mom, Luan replied angrily, in disgust. Although he knew that the intelligence of the imps was at most like that of an 8-year-old child, still, hearing someone call his mother a whore truly annoyed him. Luan shouted, Mother, try to imagine something materializing in your hands. It could be a sword or dagger. Mara looked at Luan and did not answer, but shook her right hand and closed it, and in the next moment, she imagined the process of a sword materializing. __. Scanning started. Process completed. Prototype. Medieval sword 96 centimeters. __. The sword was something very similar to a holographic image, but still, Mara was holding the sword with her right hand. The sword had a sequence of 6 oval holes on the blunt side from the hilt to the middle of the sword. The handle looked like metal, and the body of the sword was slightly curved. Step by step, Mara moved forward, and in the blink of an eye, she suddenly arrived in front of the red imp and cut horizontally and vertically in the imp's direction. After each cut, the 2 arms of the red imp fell to the floor with the sound thud. And the red imp flapped its wings to get away in the air. Mara's cuts were not only violent but very fierce and cruel. Each time she cut, an arm of the red imp was lost. I want to see you recover from that, now. Mara shouted. She didn't care that the red imp could fly. She already noticed a pattern and knew that it couldn't fly for long, especially now that it was injured, being without its 2 arms. The next scene, however, almost made her choke on her saliva. Mara saw 2 green imps grab the arms of the red imp and chew. The strange thing was that the green imps started to turn blue, and their strength of 7 to 8 times stronger than an ordinary man went up to 9 times. Mara's chi was very small, and after spending all that time with the materialized sword, she felt tired and fell to the floor, breathing hard. The red imp's black eyes showed a cruel gleam when he saw this. In his wisdom, he knew that she used too much energy when creating that sword. Goo-oh, mother! Christina and Katharina saw this and were agitated. They pushed away the blue imps they were fighting against and ran at full speed to help Mara. However, they were slow. Luan. Ingrid was also agitated. She wanted to go and help. However, she was stopped by Luan, who held her arm. In the next moment, she found out why he did it. When the red imp was only a few inches away from Mara, she suddenly smiled and the sword in the imp's hand advanced towards the chest of the red imp, passing through the body of the imp and reaching the heart. Goo-oh. Confused. It is very simple, you have been tricked. Mara laughed gracefully, standing up without showing any sign of tiredness. It was true that she didn't have much chi, but it wasn't that low. She was able to let the sword materialize for at least 5 minutes. Mara didn't really understand what the red imp said, but she guessed based on the red imp's expression of disbelief. Luan praised his mother in his mind. That was exactly what the red imp had said. Mom, you tricked us. Katharina pouted. Era. To deceive the enemy, it is easier when you can deceive your allies first, Mara laughed. Tisk. Katharina clicked her tongue and went to attack another imp. Mom, I'm glad you're okay, Christina said with a relieved sigh and smiled right away. Mara made the materialized sword disappear. Cutie pie, there's no way your brother would let me be hurt. If he didn't act, it meant that I would be fine. Mara stroked Christina's head and spoke with a gentle smile. Christina blushed and nodded, her cheeks pink. Stay alert, Luan warned them when he saw some blue imps flying and attacking from the sky. Mara and Christina dodged the balls of fire and water that came towards them and prepared to fight. The terrain itself was not bad. Although the ground would sink a bit if they used a lot of force, it did not hinder their speed very much. Katharina, with her brute strength, took a dead green imp by the feet and lobbed it in the direction of the blue imps that had come to attack her mother and little sister. Bang! Asterisk. The green imp launched by Katharina caught a flying blue imp, knocking him to the ground with the sound of thud. And then Christina was quick to act and stepped on the head of the fallen blue imp, killing him. Stamp. Asterisk. Ew. Christina's expression was disgusted. She saw a green slime, the blood of the imp, had stuck to the sole of her shoe. She. GGGG. 2 blue imps pointed at Christina and flew towards her. Christina had the brilliant idea of using the blue imp lying on the floor as a weapon. She picked him up by the feet, and when the 2 blue imps approached, she lifted the body of the blue imp in her hand and swung it in the direction of the 2 blue imps. Take this! Christina screamed and attacked the 2, but did not land her attack. The 2 blue imps had flapped their wings and dodged. Seeing that her plan had failed, Christina was not affected. She still continued to spin holding the blue imp, and launched the body through the air towards the blue imps. Whoosh! Asterisk. Because of the spin she had made, the blue imp's body picked up speed when it was launched, but the 2 blue imps were already expecting this, and shied away from the projectile. Then they went to attack Christina again, which in turn, she picked up the green imp lying on the floor and used it as a weapon as well. She pretended to swing towards the blue imps, and when they thought they were dodging, the direction of the green imp changed and went towards them with more speed as she made a quick turn. Bang! Asterisk. The impact was great, making the imp that was the first to be launched fly far into the air. As for the other, his wings were crushed, most likely unable to fly again. The place was like a big open field, but without trees and only a few plants, which made the scenery an ideal place to fight. It was also because of that it also made it so easy for Christina, Katharina, and Mara, as well as for the imps who could attack from all directions. Mara was quick to act and ran towards the blue imp that had its wings smashed, and before the blue imp fell to the ground, she spun in the air, and kicked the blue imp's head, almost exploding it like a watermelon. Green goo got stuck to her feet. Because of that, she said, disgusted, yuck, this is very disgusting. Chapter 88. Bestial Imp. The fight went on and Mara with her 2 daughters did a good job killing more than 50 imps, whether they were blue or green. They even managed to kill 2 red imps. After that, Mara, Christina, and Katharina were panting, almost without the strength to continue. The imps seemed to have no end. The more they killed, the more they would appear. You three did a great job, Luan said. You can come back here and rest. Now Ingrid and I will deal with the rest. Era, is that so? Okay then, I leave the rest to you both. Mara smiled tiredly. She went over next to them and sat on the floor, almost falling apart. Christina and Katharina did the same. The rest is up to you two. Katharina lay on the floor while breathing heavily. She was the one with the least strength between them, but she felt that if she meditated a little now, she would be able to increase her strength. Meanwhile, the green imps were lining up, basically to be eaten by the red imp. It was a very strange and disgusting sight. Because of that, the strength of the red imp that was eating the green imps and even some blue imps was growing. The red imp flapped his red bat wings and shouted, I am Pong. Now I will evolve and kill you all. Luan translated, that's what he shouted. Shouldn't we stop him before he can do that? Ingrid asked. Of course not. He is still weak. I want him to eat a little more as it will turn into better ingredients. Luan took the big backpack from his back that he brought with him and handed it to his mother. Hold this for me. Yes, okay. I hope these imps will be of some use to you. Mara had already recovered her breath, and was again capable of carrying a conversation. They will. Luan said it with such certainty that it made them all believe him. I kind of feel bad for the imps now. Katharina chuckled. Oh, how about taking one of them as a pet, then? Luan scoffed. Of course not. Just thinking about it made Katharina shiver. It will be traumatizing to see one of those imps every day. Seeing that Luan and the women were not paying attention to him, the red imp returned to eating the other imps. It looked like the red imp was tired of eating them one by one. He started to hold imps one in each hand and bite in a way that was quite unbelievable how much his mouth could grow. It resembled a snake that had unhinged its jaws to swallow something very big. The belly of the red imp was becoming more and more like a ball, but his digestion was surprising since it always returned to normal a few seconds later. It will evolve into a different species perhaps. Ingrid guessed. Yes, he wants to become a bestial imp. The only thing that changes is the tail that grows and the pair of horns that gets bigger. Oh, I think the wings get bigger too, and it becomes gray, Luan explained. Luan, you are so knowledgeable, you are really amazing, Ingrid said with admiration. Luan and Ingrid were relaxed, even as they watched the red imp evolve. Katharina looked at the two with conflicted eyes as she murmured to herself. Luan wants the red imp to evolve, and Ingrid admires him for that. I think they both have loose screws. Luan, are you sure it's not time to kill this thing yet? Katharina asked, seeing how much the red imp had already eaten. Not yet, Luan replied. Imps do not normally evolve by eating others of their same species, this only happens when they are at risk of being killed by enemies. It is a rare chance to see a monster evolve, and despite it evolving into a bestial imp, it won't be quite able to reach the strength of 50 ordinary men. The red imp has passed the strength of 40 times that of an ordinary man. It was now almost 120 centimeters. The amount and density of energy within his body was no longer normal. This red imp usually had some sense of brotherhood, and having to eat the other imps made him cry out in resentment. You ho ho. That's right. You are eating well. Luan even picked up some bodies of the imps lying on the floor and tossed them over at the red imp. The red imp's eyes widened and became blood green, well, imp blood green. Why aren't the other imps coming to attack? Christina was curious about this. As I said before, they are smart. Although they only have the intelligence of an 8-year-old child at most, they know that they have no chance of winning and have placed all of their chances on the evolution of the red imp. Luan looked at Christina and explained all this to her. Gooop oo hip. My god. Katharina stood up and said, he's letting out a light, that's. The imp must be evolving. Christina added. Luan had a smile on his lips. He had come here in an attempt to train Mara, Christina, and Katharina, so he never expected to hit a jackpot here. As expected, a bestial imp. He's creating a monster core. With the monster core, Luan could do many things, as well as just meditate and take the pure energy from the monster core. The red imp's body let out a green light. His body absorbed an enormous amount of chi, and his intelligence increased on another level. His body was much larger than before, 160 centimeters tall. He had gray skin and gray bat wings, bull horns, and devilish green eyes. His teeth looked like pinecone fish teeth. It's over. Ingrid asked. No, not yet. Just a little more. As soon as Luan said that, the bestial imp shouted. Go gip pp gooming pee. Now I'm going to kill and eat you all. Now, yes, Luan murmured and took action. Bang. Asterisk. Luan moved so fast he broke the speed of sound, causing a loud sonic boom, forcing Mara and the girls to cover their ears and curse Luan for not warning of this before. Luan appeared in front of Bestial Imp and threw a punch to the monster's chest. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. The Bestial Imp was slammed towards the ground, and fell with a thunderous crash, causing the rocks to fly in all directions and a crater to form on impact. The Bestial Imp crushed a few other imps in the process, and with anger and resentment, he ate the bodies to heal. Even a red imp was not spared, which was of some help in strengthening and healing the Bestial Imp. Luan did not stay afloat, since to do that he would spend a lot of chi, so he went down on the ground, and once again he ran towards Bestial Imp at an alarming speed. Luan is really amazing, Christina exclaimed seeing this. Luan, who arrived in front of Bestial Imp once more, launched a kick towards the imp's body and made it float in the air. And before it could stabilize itself, Luan crouched down and built up a boost then jumped. Chapter 89. Finishing up the imp battle. Luan looked like a rocket being launched into the sky. His speed was fast enough to reach Bestial Imp and even overtake it, and without giving the Bestial Imp a moment of peace, Luan stabilized his body in the air, and with a spin, he dug the heel of his right foot into the Bestial Imp's head. Bang. Asterisk. Boom. Asterisk. G-goo-hk. The Bestial Imp let out a terrible cry when his body began to squirm on the floor. The food he wanted to devour was right in front of him, but he was being beaten like a punching bag, unable to react in time. He gained superior intelligence, so the pain he received increased dramatically. The fact that before he was certain of victory if he evolved made him terribly sorry when he saw Luan's strength. Still, the Bestial Imp refused to give up. He flew with great effort while carrying the body of a red imp and ate it in the sky, so as not to be easily attacked. Ingrid, kill the other imps and don't let him get close to the bodies of the others. If possible, stack them all in one place and protect the pile, Luan said out loud. Yes. Ingrid nodded and started to do that. She was not as fast as Luan, but that didn't mean she was slow. She was, after all, 46 times stronger than an ordinary man if she used her blood chi. After running towards the herd of imps, she began to attack in a predatory manner, killing each one with just a single attack. In addition, she also stole the essence of their blood in each attack, which was something of great benefit to her since the blood essences of the imps were somewhat special and pure. Seeing her do this left the Bestial Imp disgusted. He roared and shouted, "Goo-oo-oo." But he did not dare to go and attack Ingrid, since he was cautious enough to understand that the moment he did that, he would be attacked by Luan. At that moment, Ingrid did something that surprised even her. She pulled all the blood that dripped from a blue imp and had it hover under her hand in the form of a ball of green blood. Ingrid's irises widened, and she had the idea of turning the blood into a sword. A patterned sword, nothing special but made of blood, was formed. It was bladed on both sides, and a place to hold a blood cable that fit very well in Ingrid's hand. Because of her origin, the blood that was liquid became something solid in Ingrid's hand. She then started to swing the sword and saw that it was easy to handle. Ingrid smiled what looked more like a devil's smile to the imps and started to attack with more ferocity. Whoosh, 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 asterisk. Around her, only the sound of Ingrid's green blood sword ripping through the air and the bodies of the imps was heard. It was so fierce that it made the Bestial Imp flying in the sky shudder with fear. Huong. Fear drove the Bestial Imp to insanity. He might as well run away, but he wanted to attack Ingrid when he saw her kill the other imps. Which was very contradictory since he had eaten many of the imps himself to evolve. Seeing that after a while the bestiary imp had finally decided to act, Luan would not let him have his way. He waited until the best moment and jumped in the air in the direction of Bestial Imp. Huong. Stay out of this. Ha ha. Do you really believe that I will listen to you? Luan scoffed and threw a shower of punches and kicks in the direction of the Bestial Imp. Asterisk po. Asterisk. The sounds of the exchanging of punches and kicks echoed until the Bestial Imp was unable to defend itself or to dodge and was hit in the stomach and careened towards the ground. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. Okay. The monster core must have already stabilized. Luan murmured. From start to finish he made the Bestial Imp fight with all his might in order to stabilize the monster core. Now that he didn't have to wait any longer, Luan made a springboard with chi in the air, and flexed his knees, propelling his descent to the ground. When the Bestial Imp saw this, his eyes were bloodshot and fear hovered over his heart. However, He was already injured and could not escape in time. Luan reached out in front of himself, and extended his hand towards the bestial imp's chest, and a strong impact made the bestial imp's body split in half. Asterisk boom. Asterisk. The ground gave way further and deepened the crater that formed in 3 layers. Luan took the upper body of the bestial imp and reached inside and removed a sphere which resembled a dark green quail egg. Luan took the other part of the bestial imp's body and jumped out of the crater. He walked over to where his mother and sisters were and said, "You 3 should start meditating. Don't waste your efforts from before." That's true. Katharina had almost forgotten that. She still remembered that it was because of something like this that she had become so strong earlier. "Aren't you going to help Ingrid?" Mara asked when she saw that Ingrid was still fighting the rest of the imps. "No, she needs training too," Luan said. "Ingrid has not yet learned to control her origin. This is a good chance." "Oh, if you say so. I'm going to start meditating. Can I leave the backpack on the floor?" "Yes." Mara asked. "Yes, that's no problem," Luan nodded. After that, he busied himself with dismantling the bestial imp. Then he started to take the remains of the other imps and dismantled them too. Ingrid was the goddess of death. He was the butcher who took the bodies and dismantled them. This continued for a few minutes until Ingrid managed to kill all the imps. It was almost 200 imps in total. It was too much. "I'm going to meditate too." Ingrid felt she could make progress at any time. All right. Luan saw no problem with that and continued to dismantle and take the most profitable and important things from the bodies of the imps. After doing all this, Luan also felt the need to meditate when he felt that there was no threatening life forms around. Chapter 90. Going towards the forest. Almost 2 hours later. "I am now 11 times stronger than an ordinary man," Katharina murmured. "I've already become 12 times stronger than an ordinary man," said Mara. "I am also 12 times stronger," Christina smiled and said. "Very good. I'm happy for your improvements," Luan said with a smile. "I also managed to make progress. I have become 41 times stronger with just my body. I am 22 times stronger with my body and 27 times stronger than an ordinary man with chi." Ingrid was surprised by her progress. "The comparisons are really hurtful," Katharina sighed. "There is still a long way to go to be as strong as you two." "Stop it. If you keep trying, you'll soon be as strong as us." "Well, you'll be strong soon," Luan joked, which made Katharina snort and pout. "What are we going to do now? Is there still anything useful here?" Mara asked, looking at the distance. They were now in an open field with not much around them, but in the distance, there was a forest. "Maybe there is something good in this forest." "There must be," Luan said. "I feel energy from different types of things from that direction, be it monsters or medicinal herbs. Anyway, I want to get as many rare plants and herbs as possible. So we are going over there." Not far from them was a bloody scene. It was the place where Luan had dismembered the imp. Christina asked while looking at this scene, "And these imps, are there more of them in this place?" "It's possible. I believe the imp mother still exists and there may be more imps along with her. They may even be stronger than the ones we fought since the strongest among them are probably protecting the imp mother," Luan explained. "Since that's the case, let's leave this place at once." Mara did not pay much attention to this, but now that she had stopped meditating, she was a little nauseous looking at the bloody scenery that served as a slaughterhouse. "Yes, we better go, so as not to stay here overly long." Luan agreed and lifted up the large travel backpack that was now filled with the remains of the imps and some rare herbs he had found while they meditated. As they walked towards the forest, Christina asked, "Big brother, I read a cultivation book recently. This book is very similar to some of the things we're doing. Was it written by a cultivator?" "Not necessarily. He must have read a lot of history, and so the knowledge on that subject sometimes makes sense," Luan said. "I understand." Christina asked another question as she walked and looked at Luan. "Big brother, the MC of the novel, says he loves his family, but why doesn't he help them get stronger? I mean, in the book I read, he stayed over a year with them and his family were still normal people, and his sister was still raped and killed by the enemy of the story's MC. I don't understand why he did it. Why didn't he help and teach his family to get stronger? Did he really love his family?" "Yes, I agree, it doesn't make sense," Luan said. "It would only make sense if he was too afraid to tell his family, but I think it is unlikely since there is no reason to fear telling one's family about something like this. Or he thought it was better not to involve his family in problematic things like cultivation, which also doesn't make sense, since if they can't protect themselves and his enemies want to take revenge, he will be harming his family even more. And lastly, there is the plot issue. In doing so, the author would give him a reason to take revenge and create a plot that holds people to read his story and see him take revenge. Maybe that's it. But Big Brother, I think deep down, he just doesn't love his family, just like my old one. When she brought up the subject of her blood family, Christina was sad. She was sensitive when it came to when a family did not love each other, just as she was not loved before. Don't think about it too much. Now you have a family that loves you very much. Luan understood where she was going. Even if a little, she identified with the story she read. Know that I love you, and that Mother and Katharina and Ingrid also love you. Besides, not all stories are like the one you read. I will recommend a better one for you later. Thank you, and I know that I am loved now. Christina gave him a bright smile full of happiness and joy. See, now you are even able to smile like that. Katharina rubbed Christina's head and said softly. Returning to the previous subject, Luan. Mara looked at him. Want to hunt the imp mother? No, we're just going to attack whoever attacks us. It would be problematic to go to her, Luan said. As I said before, wherever she is, it is possible that there are thousands of imps protecting her. That would just be a headache with little reward. Oh, then forget it. These small monsters were not afraid to die. That would make them scary adversaries if there are even more than the ones we faced already, Maria said with a forced smile. It was scary to imagine a place full of imps. When they passed the trees and entered the forest, Luan had already identified some rare plants and herbs and began to harvest them carefully. Something is coming from that direction, Luan said, on alert. In the air, something came flying towards them. It took some while for them to see what it was since the place was very dark. Only the faintest glow from the moonlight reflected over the whole place. When it was a few feet away, everyone was able to see. The creature was a skeleton with clumps of rotten flesh on its chest, arms, legs, and jaw. This skeleton had a pair of aged wings, looking like old cloth with bones, and a tail of bones, very similar to the shape of a scorpion's tail. The skeleton's eyes for some reason shone in neon yellow, and his mouth was opened with a red tongue hanging out, looking like a dog when it drapes itself out of the car and hangs out the window. When Luan prepared to attack, this skeletal monster flapped its wings and flew away from the place. Why did he run away? Did he see that you were going to attack and run away in fear, Luan? Katharina, who saw Luan's actions, asked. Yes, his instincts are good, despite his appearance, Luan said. He will probably come back and bring others of his kind with him. And what would that species be? Skeletons. Christina asked, innocently. Undead. Not all are skeletons like that. Well, let's hide and wait. I'm going to create a concealment spell and set a trap. Their bones in general are very good for creating pills and artifacts. Luan's eyes lit up at the thought of those bones nourished by the skeleton that flew away. Okay. They moved a little away from where they were, and Luan opened the backpack and took a pot of imp's blood and started drawing circles and old letters on the floors and trees. When a configuration of a pentagram was formed, the entire location within the circle became hidden. Stay here. I will create the traps now. Saying this, Luan left the hidden circle, and only by special means could he know where it was. After that, he started setting traps with spells and diagrams, and runes throughout the forest near the site.